I've got a dog next door, so she might open the door or something at some point, but she's generally fine.
No worries. It's nice to meet you, Bruce. Nice to see you in person.
And you, mate. And you. I've been looking forward to chatting with you. Thanks very much for coming on.
So it's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Are you happy for us just to crack on? We can get to know each other during the podcast as well. Sort of keeps it more, what's the term they use, organic?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah. Beautiful. No worries at all, mate.
Right, we'll crack on then. Folks, welcome back to the podcast. And this week we're chatting with Jonathan Hull. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's nice to be here, mate.
Yeah, awesome to have you on here, man. You cropped up on my Facebook. I think you got in touch with me first, and then I started looking at your account. And can you explain to everybody, in case they don't know who you are and what you do, can you just explain exactly that?
Okay, I'm kind of an accidental bike builder. It's been a funny story. I build predominantly sort of cafe races and scramblers. Really minimal stuff. I'm very sort of minimalist in design. But yeah, sort of happened into it by accident. I always say I accidentally built a pretty bike once, and then I couldn't stop. I just kept going, and then all of a sudden I'm now at it full time. I gave up my perfectly good job for just because I needed to, and now I'm building bikes for a living. It's been a bit of a journey.
Mate, I feel that. I feel like I've been in a very, very similar position. I get you. Totally. So let's go back a little bit. What can you talk about your previous job? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. I've often discussed my history. I've got a bit of a story.
Good. Well, let's hear it. This is the perfect place for it. I'll tell you what, actually, this is very rude of me. I haven't even said, do you have a tipple for this evening?
I do. As I've said, which is probably part of my story, I'm fully alcohol free. But I love this. I love beer. Right. I even though I don't drink, I still love beer. And the alcohol free market's kicked off.
It has, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it used to be Caliber, wasn't it? And that was awful stuff.
Rancid.
Yeah. But now you can get all sorts. This is Northern Monk. It's brilliant stuff.
Wow.
I absolutely love it. It's like a pale ale.
Okay, then, mate. Well, Slange, here's to your health.
Cheers.
So the story. Let's hear it.
Wow. Right. Well, if I waffle, you have to let me know.
You are amongst friends if you're a waffler. Don't worry.
I started out as a musician. So from a really early age, I got into music. And then about when I was about 14, 15, all I wanted to be was a musician. I'm a bass player and drummer. A rhythm. I call myself a rhythm sectionist because I played Latin percussion as well. Yeah. And my parents at the time were really supportive, and I went through music college, and I've got a degree. I've got a degree in popular music and jazz from Leeds College of Music. So in my 20s, I was a professional musician. Up until I was about 30 years old. And I loved it. I mean, I'm a creative person, I guess, which is why I'm building bikes now. But it was a cracking little career, and I played with some big names and some great venues. Got me all over the place. But then the lifestyle started catching up with me, and the stuff that goes with rock and roll. Am I allowed to go into that?
Of course you are. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, I got quite bad. I got quite bad on drugs and alcohol. And by the time I was 30, I was in a real state. I was really close to, the bottom line, if you like.
Gotcha.
And I had to get fixed. My family scooped me up. I was living in Leicester at the time because I could get down to London and up to Leeds and Manchester and all over the place when I needed to. But it got to the point just before I was 30 that I couldn't function. Absolutely couldn't function. So my family sort of scooped me up and brought me back up here to Wakefield in West Yorkshire. And I got clean. after a struggle. It wasn't easy. It was a good few years, and I got myself cleaned up. And I guess because I couldn't do that lifestyle anymore, I left it behind. And I needed to find like a conventional career.
Yeah.
I guess so. I ended up making use of my degree, and I trained as a teacher. I did about 5 years in total, working in schools, and then eventually trained up as a teacher, and then I became a high school music teacher. So still making use of my music, still making use of my degree, but a conventional everyday job, and I loved it. I was good at it. I was really good at it. I got into management really quick, and that's when I started falling rapidly out of love with it. I did it 15 or so years, and all the politics of it, all the when you get into management, it's not about the teaching anymore. It's all about the league table.
The business of it.
Yeah, the business side of it, the league tables, the government. Ofsted, and it's wrong. I firmly believe our education system is broken in this country, and it's a shame. And that's before you get to the whole chunk of society, the whole chunk of young people that are creative and not getting the support they need, because they don't affect, the English and maths scores in a positive way.
Is it still that case? Because I remember, we sound like we're similar ages. I'm 46, and I remember at school that, the creative side of things, it was there. There was art and drama, but it wasn't pushed or promoted. It was the core sciences and maths, English. They were all pushed on you and get yourself off to uni and go into the oil, go into engineering. Yeah. Is it still like that?
It's the same, yeah, and even with the engineering sides of things and getting people getting kids into technology, it's the same thing. All of those things have to be there in a school, but they're not prioritized because it's English and maths results that get the school up the league tables, and now with the move to academies, and that over the last 10 years or so. It really is sort of the backdoor privatization of education in our country. It's and all the schools are now run like corporate entities, and that's where the problems are coming from. And there's some very bent business going on in these big academy trusts. Yeah. So I fell out of love with that rapidly, and I was looking. We used to call it, because you're kind of trapped in. Once you get into teaching, you're trapped in it. Yeah. Because it's difficult to get back into your industries that you came from if you've done that, like I did, and it's difficult if you've just trained up to be a teacher. If you've gone straight from college, university into teaching, then you're not really trained to do anything else, or you're massively overqualified, for other roles, other jobs. So people feel trapped in it. But there are more and more people now that are being brave and making the move out. And we used to call it digging our escape tunnel, and I did. Yeah. So I finally escaped in Charlie Tunnel, and got out of there. Yeah.
Do you know? To interrupt slightly, that again, there's probably lots of people in this who feel like they're in the same position, who've been in an established career path for X amount of years, and they do feel stuck. I know it was exactly the same in the old bill. I still have friends in the old bill who want to leave, who desperately want to leave, but they just don't feel like they've got any skill set to leave. They don't feel of value to anyone out there, or alternatively, they just think to themselves, I haven't got a skill that I could set myself up on. And, I always say to people, you just have to identify what your skill sets are and make your plan, dig your tunnel and go for it, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I mean, it's got to be the same for the forces, because you are trained to be a specific role, aren't you? And it's very specialized. So yeah, it's difficult when you're trying to look for something else. And I tried other things. Tried to go into composition for a while. I'm quite good with music technology, and I was writing music for video games for a little bit. But that's hard. That's a tough game to get into. But yeah, so found myself building bikes. Just decided one day after well, some people have heard this story before, but I went to the barbers, and I was sat having my haircut, and the hairdresser, the barber, said to me, I've just seen a bike. And I said, a motorbike? And he went, yeah, I'm thinking of just stripping it back, turning it into a cafe racer. Mm-hmm. This was six years ago now. And I said, what's a cafe racer? I had no idea.
6 years ago?
Yeah. What's cafe racer? I mean, I'd ridden bikes as a youth. I was more of a mod. I had scooters when I was at music college. I was into that jazz too.
Gotcha.
I even did the suit and the dancing and talcum powder on the floor time. All that. Yeah. So yeah, I was a bit of a mod, but never really thought about bikes in my music career. Anyway, this my barber says I'm thinking about building a cafe racer, and it intrigued me. So I went home and I did a load of Googling, and I fell in love with these things. What people were building, what people were creating, and I just kept researching it. And then I got into the Bobber Boys and the real 60, the Ton Up Boys, and the 60s cafe racer scene, and just learning about what they were doing and why they were doing it. And I was hooked. And within a month, I'd collared my dad. I'd got my dad involved. And we went over to Stoke-on-Trent, and we dug a motorbike out of a scrap heap and brought it home. And I built a bike over the next sort of year. I built a bike, never having done it before.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's an accident, because it turned out pretty. Wow. It was a really pretty little bike, and it was only a 125. But I was using Instagram just to document it for me, just for me to put the process down. And then this little bike just seemed to go, I want to say viral, because but people were picking it up and sharing it, and it was going to all the big sort of influencer pages and getting loads of attention. And I thought, hang on, I might be onto something here. This is pretty cool. Yeah, so I built another.
And it was a natural progression from that then, just building one after the other to the other.
Yeah, it's been lucky. I say lucky, but I guess, all my work managing bands and the music industry and the promotion side of things has helped me quite a lot, because I'm quite good at that side of things, and people. I think I'm quite good with people. So that's been a help. And I, after my second bike, I got talking to the guys at Malay. Do you know Malay?
Oh, yeah,
and we got one of the bikes. My first bike was on show there in the lockdown one that they did. And then next year I had 2 bikes on show there, and then I've been there every year for the last 3 or 4. So that's been good. So yeah, it's just sort of snowballed, and I've tried to keep it going, with the momentum, just keep at it, so it's been a mad one.
So where are you at now then? Jonathan Hull Bespoke Motorcycles.
Yeah, so in April last year was my official leaving date for teaching. And it coincided with the start of the tax year. And I registered Jonathan Hull & Son Limited. And then went for it, really, and started going full time. I mean, it's not easy, and it's having its ups and downs. So it's not all roses, of course, but I'm loving it. My wife says, and she's been incredibly supportive. I mean, I left a $45,000 a year job, to do this. But my wife's been amazing, really supportive. And she says, I'm a lot better man for it, It's made me a better person, which is.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, I was going to ask if it's had that beneficial effect, because my wife says exactly the same about me. You know, I've thought, certainly in the first year, coming from my previous background where you're effectively employed by the government, to becoming self-employed during the time of the pandemic where it was just total unknown, I was shitting myself. So I didn't know financially if I could make it work. And I'm sure you're in the same boat, or we're in the same boat. And I thought a few times, sorry, here's my dog. I thought a few times, you know, maybe I should make moves to go back into the force. And it was my wife that basically said, don't do it, because you just weren't happy. We can make this work. And now she's just like, you're a totally different man. You're just so chilled out compared to what I was. And I didn't realize I was stressed or uptight, but apparently I was.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant news. I mean, my mental health towards the end of my job, my mental health was rock bottom. And I think all the time in the back of my mind, I'd done it for the wrong reasons. I'd come out of this addiction and this being rock bottom, and I needed to get involved in conventional society again. And I saw that as my road to do that, to lead a normal life. And I think in the back of my mind, that's why I was doing it. It wasn't because I loved it, even though I was good at it and there were aspects that I enjoyed. And the stress of it, the stress our teachers are under in this country is unbelievable. And the hours that they work. I know people, and it's forgivable that people see teachers as like childcare, and I get it. But the amount of pressure they're under, and my wife's an English teacher in a high school, and regularly doing, 70, 80-hour weeks. It's ridiculous. I mean, she's working she does a full day at school. She comes home, she works until 11 o'clock at night every day, and Rachel, bless her's not in management, So yeah, my mental health couldn't deal with that towards the end, and I was done. So this isn't, like I said.
Just to go off topic slightly, do you think there's a solution to that?
Well, you mean the education system?
Yeah, sorry, the education side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I as I said, I'm firmly convinced it's broken. The whole idea of the academy trusts, these big businessmen that come in to run massive groups of schools, is a terrible system. And there are good superheads. There are one or two good. The one that controls my wife's schools, they're brilliant. But some of them are just, tyrannical, and their eyes are firmly on the league tables, and they're standing in this, and the business side of it. Rather than the actual teaching, the education side of it, and the welfare of the pupils. The kids become statistics. All the kids are to these people. To a lot of these people are, statistics and data, and then there's no real sort of love, support, and that's what I was all about. If a kid's not performing well, there's no going into why that might be. That's support. What's going on at home? Wow. It's it's not the same everywhere, and there's some brilliant people in education, but the system I don't think works, in my opinion.
I hear that from lots of friends and friends of friends who are teachers. They all say exactly the same. It's across the country, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, everyone that I speak to who is within that environment, sounds very similar to the old bill. No one's happy. Everyone thinks, the system's screwed. Yeah. Cool. Wow. Yeah.
Years of cuts and money going in the wrong direction, which I'm sure is the same for the police force. Years and years of having money taken away, dripping down. And then instead of going to the individual schools now, it goes into the academy trusts and they decide where it's going. So if they have a flagship school that's getting them right up the table, all the money will go to them. And then, you know.
So the one that's already performing, that gets all the benefit. Oh, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
And all the kids that aren't performing in that school get moved. Down into the lower ones, you know. It's broken.
Right, let's bring it back on course. Yes,
motorbikes.
So, back to the dream job, living the dream. So, Jonathan Hull and Sons Bespoke Motorcycles. What, as a customer, what do you provide then? So, as a customer turning up to go, "Hi, Jonathan, I want a bike." Boom. What happens?
Right. Well, I based on my my original 125, I select these 125 bikes. They are 2004 to 2008 CG 125s, Hondas. Specifically those ones, and they're getting few and far between now sometimes. But they had the pressed steel box frame. And I love that design of that frame. If you expose it, get rid of all the plastic, it actually it's really beautiful when you saw it out. The lines are really nice. So I build those as like a stock model. So if you come into me for one of my 125 builds, that's what you get. You can either pick a scrambler or a cafe racer style. At the minute, I'm looking at developing a flat track or two, and they are pretty much the same build. It's just the stance. Customer gets to choose the tank color, the leather details, all that sort of stuff. But essentially, you get that bike that I build. So they're my bread and butter, really, and I can't make those quick enough.
Wow,
literally
really?
can't make them. Yeah, I can't make them quick enough. And they're not cheap. You know, they're £6,500 in total, which, you know, some people remind me regularly that's a lot of money for a 125, but they are show quality bikes. You know,
they're beautiful. Yeah. Folks, if you're listening to this and or even if you're watching a video, if you've not seen these pictures yet on Instagram, certainly head over to Jonathan's Instagram page. There'll be links down below, or head to the website. Again, links down below, and just check them out. They're gorgeous.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So yeah, they are, you know, even though they are learner legal bikes, and I get a lot of kids or youngsters that are wanting to learn approaching me about builds. And yeah, even though they are learner legal, they're not really learner bikes. You know, they're show bikes. They every one of them, I put a great deal of care into them. They're fully rebuilt, you know, fully powder coated. Everything's perfect. You know, I don't let them out unless I'm 100% happy. And some of them just end up in people's front rooms. I've sold two or three that are just on display in people's houses, or you know, which is nice. I do build them to be ridden, but yeah. But then I got the bigger ones as well. So you can come to me for a bespoke build of your choice. And I guess I was heading into being a bit of a Honda specialist, you know, basing bikes on the older CB range, because the tubular frames are nice to work on and the engines are good. But I've recently taken on a BMW, which you can see behind me.
All right, okay.
So that's
what's the plan there?
Well, that's my show bike for this year. That's been submitted already to the Bike Shed show, even though it's not quite there yet, as you can see. So I've got a firm deadline with that. But I'm working with a friend of mine, Mark, a couple of friends, Mark and Matt. Mark runs Barnfield Customs. He's been working for about 6 years on some motorcycle clothing, and he's about ready to launch this beautiful jacket. And this is part of his promotion for that.
Gotcha.
So we're doing a collaboration, but there's some amazing hardware on that build.
What is the core bike of that? The basic main bike behind the build?
That is a 1989 K100.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we've got a 2014, I think it is, S1000RR front end on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then all the Brembo kit. Yeah, so it's going to be a very pretty, very expensive bike. That
I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product of that. So that's going to be at this year's Bike Shed show.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, I've submitted it. I had a bike there last year, the Northman. That was my show bike for last year. It was based on a 1975 CB 550.
Yeah,
that we put a jigsaw front end on and all that. And that was my show bike. That did pretty well, that one, last year. And then this is, you can't go 1 year without trying to get in the next, can you? So
brilliant, love it. I remember now how you first came up on my radar. I did a thing with a TV show a couple of years ago, a motorbike TV show, where we were given a budget. We were given 500 quid, and you just had to get a bike, a road legal bike, and then we had to get it to the KTM off-road rally school in Wales, and then we were doing like a bike Olympics, basically trying to wreck the bikes in the off-road place. So I had a little sniff round, and a few people contacted me on the socials. And as it turns out, 5 miles down the road, a guy was selling a little cheap Chinese 125 bike, and it was MOT'd, road legal somehow, because it was a bag of poo. It was a total rust bucket. It was only, I think it's a 2016 plate. But it looked like it had been thrown in the harbour and just left. So anyway, I got this bike, and anyway, took it, got it to Wales, did the Olympics, and it's the only bike out the three of us that actually got there, started, finished the whole thing, and then as I was riding it back to the bothy along the tracks, I was just trying to be a bit of a Billy Bollocks and, giving it some, and I snapped the chain because it only had half a link holding the chain together. So that snapped off. But I've just thought, this bike has done me, it's done me so well. I looked at it and I thought, I want to try my hand at spannering on this and learn a little bit about mechanics. And I thought, I'm gonna look at custom building a bike. So I started hunting around Instagram, just looking for custom build 125s. And I'm sure your bikes, I remember some of these bikes popping up, and I was just looking and going, oh my God, they're stunning. They're beautiful. Yeah. That's what I want. So yeah, you've been a big inspiration for me. I've not taken the leap yet to start spannering on it, but it's still a little seed in my head. That's what I want to
go
do.
for it. Absolutely. The 125s, I think, because I did a lot of research where to start when I was getting into it, and I'd seen there was a lot of people using CGs, but they were usually the older ones with the tubular frames, and then I stumbled across Thomas at Benzin Cafe Races. And I fell in love with his bikes. I mean, he was a massive inspiration and became a very good friend of mine. And we talked quite a lot. He helped me out because I was learning, and he very generously, offered his time. And his bikes were beautiful. And I had pictures of them around my workshop. And I was referencing things, and, I wanted my bike. I didn't want to make a copy of his bike. I just used his as references to how am I going to do that? How do I get my seat to sit like that? And then just sort of went for it. And there was a lot of YouTubes involved, and reaching out to people on Instagram and talking to builders and getting advice. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done any of this without this big pool of this big community of builders on social media.
And it seems like a very supportive little world, the custom bike build world. It seems to be really not insular, but that you all seem to help each other out.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're passionate about that, I think, especially the sort of the core group I'm in. I know very clearly I wouldn't be here if people hadn't have kindly offered their time and advice to me. So we try and pay that forward, all the time. And we're bumping into each other at shows and stuff. And there's some guys like with Thomas. I mean, I'd known him on and off for 4 or 5 years, just talking on social media. But then we both had bikes for the first time at the Bike Shed show last year, and we met in person, and that was quite cool. Hoping I'll see him again this year. Yeah.
Do you know Struan re-motorcycled?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And Al,
and Al,
Bushido, Ewan, Shugley Shed. I mean, these guys were all
Shugley Shed Motors,
all amazing. And what a lovely little group. And then that group's got bigger and expanded, and Struan's doing some amazing stuff. He's refitting his house at the minute, isn't he?
He has, yeah. He said he's taking a bit of a back. What's the word? He's taking his foot off the bike build stuff because he's sorting his new home out. Good lad.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, folks. I will be quick. It is sponsor shout-out time. We are sponsored, as always, by Ultimate Add-ons. Bit of a blurb to read out for them. Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure, and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within easy reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-ons waterproof, shockproof and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Now, folks, if you head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne10, you'll get 10% off. I've got an affiliate link for them as well, which I'll leave down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. And obviously with the affiliate, I also make a slight commission off that. Costs you nothing more. So a massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons. We are also sponsored by, as always, the Influencer Store. Influencer Store handle all my merch. You can see up there, I've got loads of hats, there's hoodies, there's all sorts of things. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, you can check out all the merchandise, and that is all handled by the folks over at the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Again, there'll be links down below, folks. Lastly, a big shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon. As always, folks, I keep saying this, but it is true. I literally could not do this full time without your support over there. So a huge, heartfelt thank you from me. If you'd like to go that extra mile and help support both the podcast and the main Teapot One vid channel, then head to patreon.com/Teapot One. Again, links down below. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who's listening or watching the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I really do. And I love getting all the feedback from you, from all the various different guests that we've had. If you could be so kind, on whatever platform it is that you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify in particular, you can rate the podcast on there. Obviously, a 5-star rating goes a long way to help boost the podcast up through the ranks. And if you're watching the video, just give it a like, give it a comment, and both video and audio, if you share that with everyone that you think might be interested, that would be a massive help. All right, folks, let's get back to it. Right, dude, we have some questions to get through. How do you feel about jumping on, and we'll start working our way through them?
What do you mean by jumping on? You want me to have a look on the old... Instagram?
I'll go through them all here. Yeah, I've got them all here anyway. So let me... First off, as always, folks, we'll head to the clan over on Patreon. So patreon.com/Teapot1. First question. Charlie Callard. Evening, gents. Hope you're both fit and well. All good, thank you, Charlie. So, a couple of questions. Jonathan, what bike have you not yet customised, but you're dying to do it, and why?
I saw this. I think somebody else asked a similar question.
Yeah, popular.
A BMW was on my build list, but that's just arrived in my workshop this year. So that's a firm tick off the list. I I love doing the CBs. I would like to rip the hell out of a Goldwing, and I don't mean like a GL 100. I mean something massive.
Wow.
Big 1600 job, something with a car engine in it.
Yeah.
I'd love to just strip one back, just frame an engine, get rid of all the plastics off it, and just show off those huge engines. Go real minimal on it. So yeah, that's up here on the tick list as a big goal.
Somebody must have done that, have they?
There's some beautiful, like older ones, the GL 100s. There's some stunning builds. But yeah, I fancy one of the big ones. And for the same reason, and this will, excuse my language, piss off the Harley guys, I'd love to rip into a Sportster, get my angle grinder on it.
Yeah.
And do a cool sort of bobber on one of them. Drop handlebars, single seat, bare back wheel, one of those. So I fancy tearing a Sportster to bits. So yeah, I've got a few that are on my list still.
So you mentioned the BMW K100. Why in particular that one? Why has that one been like on your list to go for?
It actually wasn't the K100. It was the older R's that I fancied. They were on my sort of tick list. The K came about because Mark bought this bike 3 years ago, intending to do it himself. And it was going to be his project. And then 3 years later, it had not done anything. It was still sat there. So they got in touch with me and we had a chat, and they said, could you finish this project for us, or start it, really? Bless them. He put up a post the other day that said it's moved more in 3 weeks than it has in the last 3 years. So that's been ace. I wasn't intending the K, but I love it already. I mean, the engine on them and the drivetrain is a stunning bit of kit. It's like, with the Hondas, it's like Honda obviously had a ton of engines and they just slotted them into frames. So they built bikes and then they put engines in them. BMW clearly had the engine first then. And went, let's build a bike around this thing. Because the frame is just sort of stuck to the top. I mean, it's not, the engine's the stress member, and it's just the frame's there just to steer it and hold the rider, really.
Is that what you look for then when you're looking to start a new project, or just like mind porn about bikes in your head, like, this is I shouldn't have done that face, sorry, I shouldn't have done that, but do you know what I mean, like in your head when you're thinking about a bike and a design for a bike, and you're thinking about that, like the ingredients that are going to be in there, when you think of a bike, are you thinking, is that something that you look at first of all, is the engine, the chassis on the back? Are you looking at all
bones
those,
of it, the
bones, the core components, and going, right, what can I do with that? How can I accentuate this?
I've never been a fan of the big sort of sports bikes. I don't like massive fairings on bikes or all that sort of fiberglass or plastics. I want to see its skeleton. I want to see how beautiful it is underneath. I love engineering. My father was an engineer. And I'm fascinated by it, and I want to expose the engines. That's why the Northman, I based that on a CB 550, because the engine block in those is just a stunning thing, and the sound it makes. They're an incredible engine, and I wanted to show it off. So the bike, if you see the Northman, the bike is incredibly minimal. I mean, it turned out really pretty. Because it's all about that engine and frame and the bones of it, So that's what I'm looking for. I can't, if I go down to Squire's, the local, biker cafe, and I have a look around there, I'm undressing bikes. I'm mentally undressing bikes. That's what I do. What do they look like underneath all that?
Yeah.
Can I do anything with them? And there's a few bikes I wouldn't touch. Somebody was asking me why I choose the CG 125 over the GN the Suzukis, because they were very, really reliable bikes and well built. But when you get into the bones of them, they're all over the place. The design, when you strip them back, they're not pretty.
Right.
You need I like parallel lines. I like the seat and the tank to be parallel with the road. I'm constantly looking at getting the lines right is one of my taglines, I guess.
So you're obviously a very visual person then. So can you visualize the end product before you've started, or do you just not make it up as you go along? But for me, what I'm discovering, I don't class myself as a creative person, but what I'm discovering in the video editing side of things is I'll sit down a lot of the time, especially with my tour stuff, and I'll have no idea. I've got no idea how this video is going to go. I can finish a day being out on a bike and think to myself, well, what am I going to do with that? But once I get down there and I start working my way through, over time, I start developing, like for me, a story, like the layout of this video, how it's going to be, what the story is going to be that I'm going to try and portray. And I can start piecing things together. Then it's like I'm being reactionary, but I find it very hard to sit down and go, right, I'm going to plan a video for this, like if I have an item to review. I do find it hard to sit and plan something beforehand. I just have to just go out and just film load of stuff and then work with it afterwards. But surely that can't work for you.
Well, it is in some ways. I mean, I have a very clear picture of how I want a bike to look before I start it. I mean, and I'll have the donor bike on the ramp in here, and I will just sit with a cup of tea or a beer, and I'll look at it for ages, and I'll be planning it out in my head. I don't draw, I don't do renders or anything like that, which a lot of people do. But I have a very clear picture in my mind of what the end result is. And I think you have to as a bike builder. If you don't, then it can go all over the place. And there are some beautiful builds out there, but as you probably know, there's some awful ones as well that have clearly gone wrong.
Wait till you see what I do with this little Chinese thing I've got.
Yeah, and I think as I did when I first started, I thought very naively it was just a case of hitting eBay, getting a load of like custom parts, bolting and bolting them on, and it very quickly became clear that that's not how you do it. So yeah, I have a really clear picture of how it wants to look like, but then actually getting it to where it needs to be, that's when I think, how am I going to do that? I have no idea. Just get on with it, and generally it works itself out. Mm-hmm. Like if I've got a really complicated subframe to do, or frame modification, and I've done some epic ones, you've cut off the bike to bits. The point of no return when you've got this perfectly good frame with a V5 that's in pieces, and you've got to start putting it back together in how you want it to be. Yeah. And that's when it's just right. I've got to get into this, and then you start, and it starts working itself out. Similar to your video editing, I guess.
How long does this design process take for you? You're saying you sit there and you're looking at the bike and you're trying to visualize. Does that happen for you over a course of hours, or are we talking days, weeks, months?
It can do. It can be really quick. Or the Northman, I had that built in my head for a good couple of years before I built it. So I already knew. It was my dream build, as a bike builder. It's like if I could and I had the resources, what would this bike look like? So over a couple of years, I was building it in my brain. And then I sold 3 125s, and I just put all of the money straight into the Northman. It cost me about 13.5K just in parts. That's before I got my spanner out. And I had a very clear picture of what it was going to be. So that was, it was just a case of realizing that. And some of it was fairly straightforward. And some of it, like the tailpiece, like the seat cowl, I had 40 odd hours in that. I could have gone and found a fiberglasser and say, can you make me this?
Mm-hmm.
But typically I wanted it in steel, and I wanted to do it myself. So there was about 30 something pieces of steel just in the seat cowl. It was like a hand hammered jigsaw, all welded and blended in,
That must be such a good feeling when you finish the project, when you finish a bike and you step back and go, yep, that's what was in my head. Boom, there it is. And you know all the blood, sweat and toil that it's taken to get to where that is now. That must be a great feeling.
That's exactly it. And why I love it. Why I got so into metalwork is because the idea of creating something out of nothing, you've got a flat sheet of steel in front of you. Can I make that into something beautiful? Often no. Often the answer is no, you're an idiot. But sometimes you go, yeah, that's pretty good, you've put the hours in. And I think one of the questions we probably come to was somebody's asking me about the most important skill I've learned. So yeah, that making something out of nothing, even if it's just a wheel spacer or, a lug for something or a cap for a rev counter you don't need anymore. Even those little things, I get a lot of pleasure out of making my own parts,
I bet, yeah, definitely. It must be very rewarding coming from an environment where you don't feel valued, you don't feel like you're getting any reward for all the graft that you're putting in, to all of a sudden being effectively the master of your own destiny, being, you're self-employed, and now you are getting all that. You're getting it not only from your own feelings of reward for what you're producing, but you're getting all the accolades as well, and people, seeing your end product and admiring it for the art that it is. It must be awesome.
Oh, it's lovely. And it's why I do it. I mean, I'm lucky. Like I keep saying, I'm lucky. My design fell right in at the right time with this sort of new wave cafe racer scene. That fits with sort of Malay and the bike shed and all that, and the popularity of all that. So I hit that at the right time, and I slotted into that sort of scene, I guess. So there's been some luck involved in it. I am, as my wife says, I'm a better person for it. My mental health is just awesome. So much better. It's not easy though. I mean, I get a lot of, am I waffling? Bruce?
No, please, no. So it's what I say to people when they come on here. It's like there's no time limit. We're just having a conversation. It's just two people chatting. It's just very human, isn't it? We've not got an hour to get through all this, and these are the topics we've got to hit. We just go wherever it takes us. So don't worry about it. Whatever you want.
Well, you tell me shut up if you need to. I can't remember what I was saying now.
Your mental health. Your wife was saying that you're in a much better place.
Yeah, I mean the move. She's been incredibly supportive. Entirely grateful. I mean, there was a point before Christmas where the orders were dropping off a little bit, and I was getting worried. And I was thinking, am I going to have to go back to teaching? Can I still make this work? I've got 2 small children. I've got to be a provider. And at the end of the day, I have to pull a wage out of the business, whatever happens, to keep the lights on in the house, So it was getting tough. And it's struggle, isn't it? It's got its own stresses. So cash, the odds are stacked against you in this country for setting up a small business. It's not easy. There's a great deal to think about. Cash flow is a killer. I am either stock rich, cash poor, or cash rich, stock poor, and there's no kind of fine balance in that. On face value, you could look at my website or get in touch with me and you think, well, these are expensive builds. You must be, must be making a lot of money. Well, I'm not. And the margins are very fine, parts are very expensive, especially if you're after bike, like I said, the Northman cost me 13.5K before I got my spanners out. So I've always said that I won't profit from my builds. I just get paid for my time. So it's parts plus my time, and that's the price. And I don't sort of negotiate on that. It's that's how it is. If you come to me with a budget, I will factor in my time to that budget, and I'll say, well, we can build this bike for this amount of money. And
you have to, don't you? You have to.
Because people come to me and say, all right, I've got 10K, I want a bike, and I'll say, well, this is what we can do. But yeah, so it has got its stresses. It's hard work, and especially at the minute, I'm a one-man band, and I'm hoping to, develop that and progress, get out into a proper unit, and take some stuff on. Is my plan. I'd like to make use of my teaching, teaching qualifications, and get some, try and
take on an apprentice or two.
Yeah. I mean, I used to work with sort of naughty boys a lot, behavior people, kids with behavior problems. And I'd like to do something with that, if I can. But yeah, I think what I was saying is Bruce, I get quite a lot of young people come into me, approaching me through Instagram, saying, "How do I set up? I want to build bikes for a living," And I will be there, and I'll give as much advice out as I can. But the one thing I say is, it's not easy. It's not. You've got to have a plan,
Yeah, I get the same as well. People go to me, "Oh, you're so lucky doing the job that you love, blah, 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 blah. I want to get into." As soon as you mention YouTube, everyone thinks you're minted. Everyone thinks you are rolling in it. But, you have to say to people, that there are those out there who seem to make it big really quickly. And fair play to them. All the best. Enjoy. But for everybody else out there, it's a hard, long slog, isn't it, to build? Yeah. And it's not just YouTube. It's any business that you start. It takes graft. It takes a long time to build it, and you've got to keep nurturing it. And as you said, you're riding the wave, because you're up one day, and then the next day, someone doesn't pay an invoice, or an unexpected bill, or the tax man comes knocking at this time of year, and you're like, all that graft I've put in, oof, you're getting all this for nothing. It's just a real roller coaster, I find. But for me personally, I'm so much happier, and I love being the master of my own destiny to an extent, rather than being under the control of like an organization and people telling me what I can do. Isn't it?
I was never very good, and I probably get that from my mother. I was never very good at being told what to do. If I see something wrong, I will say, I've got no problem speaking truth to power, as they say.
I was the opposite.
And that used to get me in trouble,
Right.
People, especially with the academization, they want to surround themselves with yes men in management. And I certainly wasn't that,
I was the polar opposite, man. I grew up, and I was a prefect at school. I was almost like a straight A student. I worked hard, I grafted. I believed in role and authority, and both. I was fine. I was fine with all that. And it was once I was in. Do you know? It was once I was in the old bill, and I can't remember at what stage. I think maybe once I started specialising in a few different areas within the old bill, and I started seeing that the levels of hypocrisy within like governments and high flying organizations that we'd end up doing some work with, and you're just like, it's all bullshit. It's just everyone's winging it, and everyone's out for themselves here, and it was just like, no, it was like all the logic that I thought was in place, it didn't really make sense to me anymore, and I was just like, not really. I don't feel like I'm part of this world anymore. I want to make my own way now. So, I think it's probably a good 10 years ago that I started thinking, I need to separate from this.
Start digging your tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah, that analogy, digging my tunnel. Yeah, for sure. I think, I'll mention it. We've been almost an hour. I'll mention it. It was the world trip. I think that really sealed the deal for me. It was just getting out there and meeting people and just seeing what real life was like, rather than being in my little bubble that I'd spent a lot of time in, and sort of, I don't know, just that was my little world. It was nice to step out of that. Yeah.
That's something I'd love to do. I mean, that's on my bucket list. I want to do some riding, proper riding. This might surprise you. I don't currently own a motorcycle. I am building bikes. I get to ride beautiful bikes for a short time before they go to the customers. There's no better feeling, I don't think, for me than riding a vehicle you've built yourself. I mean, that is, it's scary as hell for starters, especially the first one. Because you're doing 40, 50 mile an hour down a road and you're wondering whether you tightened up the back wheel sprocket. But so shakedown's quite scary, but it was such a feeling of riding the bike I'd built for the first time. I was thinking, oh my God, this thing works, and it's cool.
Can do it.
But I would love to, I'd love to spend some time riding and go on a proper, adventure. That is definitely on my bucket list. It's the freedom in it. That's what every biker tells me. What do you love about motorbikes? It's the freedom. It's just being out there,
And it's whether you're just going to the calf or going to the shops, or you're heading to heading to Dover to head across into Europe and beyond. It's just that feeling. I love that feeling. Every time I jump on a bike, I don't care if I'm just popping 2 miles down the road into the town for something, but I get that feeling. Just the freedom, the horizons in front of you. If I wanted, I could just go. No problem.
And you are 100% engaged in that. You on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You get in a car, you're in a bubble. You can, when you're on a bike, you can't play with the radio. You can't drink a coffee. You shouldn't be on your phone, but plenty people do. You can't do that on a motorcycle or you're dead, You have to be absolutely 100% engaged in the road and the experience that you're having at that time. And that is freedom, isn't it? That's it.
You live it, you smell it, you breathe it, you wear it, you feel it. Yeah.
Every second of it, yeah.
Absolutely. Fuck it, I need out on my bike now.
I know. But yeah, people come to you and say, why motorbikes? And then, because some people look at you like, oh God, they're dangerous, aren't they? Well, maybe, but because of everybody else.
Yeah.
My granddad used to say, I'm all right, it's them others. It's one of them, isn't it? But that's it, trying to explain to them that freedom. And you don't get that until you get on a bike, do you?
No, not at all.
Until you've done it. You don't get it till you've done it.
And I get messages like weekly. I'll get emails or DMs through socials from people going, I just want to say thanks. I'm a 40-year-old person, a 56-year-old person. I've got to the stage in life, never ever ridden a bike. I came across your channel, started watching the vids, and I thought, I'm going to do it. And they've done their CBT, their direct access, whatever it is. And now they're like, I pick up my first bike, or I've now got my first bike, or I'm going on my first trip with some mates. You're just like, this is brilliant. This is awesome. It's like you're passing on the torch, isn't it? It's like, yes, welcome, enjoy.
Yeah,
right, we've answered the first question in an hour.
Yeah, it took about an hour.
Right, so Charlie's got a second question. He says, so after 48 years on our shelves, Lilt is now being discontinued and rebranded to a Fanta flavour. I didn't know that. So with that in mind... Lilt. Yeah, me too. So with that in mind, if you were to have your own soft drink, what flavour would it be and what would you call it? Wow, random.
Oh, my word. I have no idea. I
never knew that about Lilt.
Oh, I remember you remember the slightly... 1980s, slightly racist.
The Caribbean. Here comes the Lilt man.
Yeah. I used to enjoy Lilt when I was a kid. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big drinker of soft drinks. I drink tons of this, alcohol-free beer. But I don't know.
See, I'm Scottish, Charlie, so we already have our own soft drink, Iron Brew, and I don't think that can be better.
Of course you do.
So,
it's already there, isn't
it? Right. Charlie says, keep up the great work, gents. Cheers, Charlie. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you, Charlie.
Next one, Patrick Collum. Hello, chaps. How you doing, Patrick? first off, with the modern retro scene booming, CB1000R, Z900, RS, etc., is there any chance, is there any of the current crop of modern bikes that you think could be an awesome base for a new modern retro? Well, we've touched on that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have touched on that a little bit, and it's like I said, it's all about the bones. A lot of the modern bikes, the frames, either they're cast aluminium or they're steel, but they're very half box, half tubular, and sometimes I can tell straight away if I want to have a go at that. You can customize anything, if you've got mind to it. If man can build it, man can mend it, change it, as they say. But yeah, there's nothing. I don't know, nothing that springs to mind with that.
Apart from the Goldwing,
but
the big Goldwings.
Yeah. You've got to. You can have a crack at any bike, I'm sure, but you've got to look at the bones of it, as I've said. You've got to imagine it, check out what the frame looks like underneath. Do a bit of research and see what you can match to your skills, your skill set. I jumped into the deep end with my first calf because it was pressed steel box frame and not tubular. It would have been way easier to hit a tubular frame to modify. But modifying a pressed steel box frame is not very straightforward, and you have to very quickly get your welding skills and cutting skills.
Why is it, man? So pardon my ignorance here, but why is that? Why is a pressed steel frame so much harder than tubular?
Just because it depends what you want to do, especially if you go in for that retro look, and you want to use it. You're looking at using seat hoops and modifying that way, or a tubular frame lends itself easier for modification. Because you get the materials in, you can buy the tube in that's the right size, and you can redirect it, and you can make it. Shape it the way you want to do a lot more easily than you can with a factory bespoke pressed box frame. One that's been stamped out. I mean, you are stuck to those sort of shapes then, and you have to start really thinking out the box of how you're gonna tackle that. It's a lot easier to cut a tubular subframe off and then redevelop it yourself.
Right, gotcha. Are there unwritten rules within the custom bike scene then about what is and what isn't acceptable to do? Like, could you just take the engine out of that Beamer behind you and then scrap everything and just take the engine and then hand build the chassis and all the components? Would that be acceptable, or would that be like a different genre?
Yeah, absolutely. And on where I want to go, I have a good friend and mentor, Bob Moore. He's in his 70s now. He's been building motorbikes for years. I'm so lucky to have him. He lives like a mile. His unit is about a mile from my house, and he probably gets sick of me because I rock up all the time. Can you help me with this, Bob?
Bob.
But what that guy doesn't know about building motorcycles isn't worth knowing. He builds competition trials bikes for the pre-65 scene. And he bases them on Tiger Cubs. But he has Triumph Tiger Cub engines, and that's about the casings are about the only original thing about these bikes. He takes the engine, he's re-engineered the entire workings of those engines to get an absolute maximum power out of them, and then he builds the bike around that, and he makes his own frames for them. And these frames are stunning. They're oil-filled frames, so the frame itself becomes the oil tank for the engine, and they are perfect, absolutely beautiful things. So I'd like to get into, building entire frames. Maxwell Hazan, find him on Instagram, creates these amazing builds around engines, completely bespoke. So yeah, that's somewhere I'd like to go. And that's complete freedom as a builder. is building your own frames, I'm sure.
So will that come down to money, time, all those things?
Money,
then?
time, skill set, yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, building a frame is a complicated business. You have to get, you know, I'm lucky that Honda figured out all of them, you know, all of the engineering mathematics that go into the frames that I build, I modify.
Right.
And most of my modifications, though a lot of them are structural, most of my modifications are for the overall design. Yeah, designing a frame from scratch is a difficult thing to do. You have to be considering the trail, the ride, the structural implications of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough thing to do. But yeah, somewhere I'd like to be. Back to the question you said, is there unwritten rules? I've taken on other people's projects before, and I've bought donor bikes that I've had a half go at. Somebody's had a half go at. And some of the structural things I've seen, you know, these bikes that were on the road, and you were thinking, how is this thing not falling apart? How are you still alive? You know, I've seen modifications that have been, quite frankly, incredibly dangerous. So one of my things, right from the start, anything structural I take out of the bike, it goes back in a different way, in order to create my design. You can't just take an angle grinder to a bike and cut out big sections of it and expect it to behave in the same way. You have to be absolutely sure that you're putting everything back in there, you know, and that it's a safe structural, you know, bit of kit when you're finished.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people, you know, I see some things on Instagram that I cringe at, you know, there's nothing holding that bike together. Yeah.
It's interesting. Do you ever look at car design on car design on Instagram? He's a chap who does like computer renders of possible new bikes. So just say at the moment, the new GS, which is being talked about. So or say the latest M1000RR, BMW M1000RR, before that actually came out and was public, people could see it. He will do a render of what he thinks the new bike will be. And they're beautiful. Yeah. You know, they're photorealistic renders that he does. But he has, because it's his bread and butter, and he's a bike journalist anyway, and he's got the knowledge about bikes, and rendering and things, he will sit and look at other pictures. People send him pictures and go, oh, look at this custom bike. You know, someone's done a customization of, again, let's say another S1000RR. And you look at it and the picture looks stunning. But he breaks it right down into the minutiae, and he'll look and he'll go, yeah, but if you look at that, where's the travel for the front suspension? You know, he'll look at the picture, and first thing he notices is, well, there's not enough space for the suspension to move. So that suggests that's not actually a real bike. And then you'll pick up that, well, there's no cable going to or where is the caliper?
It's been built as like a show bike rather than an actual bike, right?
Yeah, well, it's not actually been built. It's people doing computer renders and then putting them forward as, oh, this is a custom bike that's been built. And he it's just the little wee things that because it's his bread and butter, he picks up on that when he looks at it. Whereas I just look at it and go, wow, that looks amazing. He looks and goes, it's not a real bike, that.
Paul, you come across Ziggy Moto?
Ziggy Moto?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have.
Absolutely huge on Instagram. He's the same. But he actually builds bikes.
Right.
And he's had a bit of stick in the past because he puts these beautiful renders up. I mean, he's a very talented guy, and he'll design, beautiful computer renders, and they're, like you say, photorealistic. The difference with Ziggy is he then goes and builds it. You know, and it looks exactly as he planned, you know, wow. which is quite amazing. And he's been a constant inspiration to me. And we've met a few times, and we speak on Instagram, and he's incredibly supportive. Lovely bloke. But yeah, back to the thing. of looking at a bike and thinking that can't be right. I mean, I've been working on CB 750 for what seems like forever because we had problems with engines and parts. And the customers had a very fixed image of what he wanted it to look like. Mm-hmm. So that's been a bit difficult for me because I've not got to just go and build the bike I want to build. I'm working with the customer to try and make the bike he wants, which is brilliant. But he wanted a great big, he wanted the tire about an inch away from the seat at the back. You know, he'd seen these things on Instagram where the tire was real close and low riding, and I was like, well, I can get it as close as I can, but I'm not giving you a dangerous bike back. The only way to do that would be so much preload on the back suspension. It'd be like riding a, hardtail.
Bar.
Yeah. Or, it's going to bounce off, the back tire is going to bounce off the seat every time you go over a speed bump. So we've got it as close as we can without it being dangerous. But, you've got to think about those things. So like say, they've got to be safe, roadworthy.
It's your reputation, though, isn't it? If they go out and something happens and it's aligned to a fault with the bike or a design fault with the bike, that's your reputation, isn't it? You got to protect that. Patrick says, second, so today I found a pack of limited edition Opal fruits, Starburst as they are now, same brand as America. However, I love the YFZ750R Boost branded bike, as well as the Lucky Strike Suzuki RGV 500. What old-fashioned brand or style do you think looks great, and if you could, would you bring it back?
Golf. I'd like the Gulf colours, the orange and the green, and I'd love to do a bike with that. I said at the start that I don't like bikes with fairings on, like all the sort of 80s, 90s plastics. But I would like to do sort of a classic TT bike. Mm-hmm. I've been talking to a guy, a coach builder, a really talented young coach builder called Toby Southern. Find him on Instagram. He's absolutely amazing what he does with steel. He's gone into the art world now, so he makes sculptures. He worked on cars all his life, family business, and now he's developed that and he's gone into creating these beautiful art pieces. And I was talking to him about getting on board and would you be interested in a collaboration at some point? And he seemed up for that idea. But I'd like to do a bike like a classic sort of 60s TT bike.
Yeah.
That classic fairing look with a modern sort of twist on it. All in, hand hammered steel, properly coach built,
Yeah.
So it'd have to be a big bike because it'd be heavy, wouldn't it? Yeah. But yeah, I'd love that idea. And those old classic racing colours, I'm a bit of a fan of Castrol, so it'd be nice, to have a sort of the Castrol liveries, perhaps. There's old Mike Hailwood bikes, those Hondas. Yeah.
There's one that jumps to my mind straight away, and it's not a classic. It's fairly recent, within the last 10 years. It was the Swan Yamaha R1 in BSB. Do you remember seeing that? The yellow, Swan lighter fluid.
Oh, Swans. Right, yeah, of course.
Oh, it was gorgeous. I think Tommy Hill rode it, actually. But I just remember looking at it and thinking it harped back to the old days, the 80s, early 90s, when you had Marlboro and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The old sort of racing styles. That one just looked beautiful. I wanted that bike so much. That R1, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, there's something about those racing liveries that does push a button with me. So at some point,
it's almost like it harps back to the like the good old days, like the raw days of racing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But before the business got in, and it was just, you had the Barry Sheens and people like that careering round.
Well, I grew up talking about Barry. One of my earliest memories of motorcycles was I grew up in Coville, I was born in Leicester, which is why I'm a Leicester City fan. believe it or not, even though I'm a Yorkshireman. I was brought up in Colville, which was a stone's throw away from Castle Donington, and every Saturday, Sunday, we'd hear the bikes going around, and my dad would say, "Oh, Barry Sheen's off again," them old days. But yeah.
I wish I'd got into bikes at a younger age. I was very late to bikes. It was sort of 2008 before I got into them. So that whole era just passed me by, and I see all the old footage and just think, it would have been awesome to turn up at Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch is 20 minutes up the road from me now. I'd be like turning up there with 100,000 people in the crowd to watch the racing. It must have been amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Right. Cheers for that one, Patrick. We'll move on to next one. Lee Vigor. How you doing, Lee? He's a professional bike tester, actually. He works, I think, for Triumph predominantly now.
Oh, wow.
Hello both, hope you're well. What's the one bike that you've built and regretted selling the most?
The Northman.
Is it?
Yeah, I that was, like I said, I was planning that in my head for 2 years before I built it. I built it quickly, because I started it in January, and it was done for the bike shed in May. So it was a quick build, but it was my perfect bike. And all the way through it was, I was, it's a business. I have to run this bike, as a business. It needed to pay for itself. Mm-hmm. And halfway through, I actually I was originally building it for me. And then halfway through, I got a commission from a customer who lives local. He's actually had another bike off me since, which is amazing. And he kept coming down to the workshop because he only lived in Leeds. And he was saying, he kept seeing me build the Northman. He was saying, "Oh, can you put that on my bike? Can you do that to my bike?" And it got to the point where I said, "Do you just want to buy this one?" Anyway, he had to think about it, and it was way over his budget. But he eventually got back to me and said, "You know what? Yeah, let's do it." And took the pressure off me because I knew the bike was paid for, and I gave it him a bit cheaper than it was worth because I needed it for the show season. So I said, if you don't mind me keeping hold of it for various dates throughout the summer, then you can have it for this price. I love that it's local. I love that it's just up the road. I love that it's being enjoyed.
I was just going to ask, do you know where it is now? Do you get to see it?
Yeah. It's due back in for a service soon. And I talk to the customer quite regularly. He's actually having a 125 off me. It's nice. He says it's on display. He's got a garden house and it's on display. And he tells me all about what people tell him about it when they come and how people love it. Awesome. It was a beast. I mean, I'd had a full race in D&M Engineering in Nottingham. Did the engine for me, rebuilt it for me, and they do a lot of TT bikes, classic TT bikes. They're so busy down there, and they did a full race spec job on the engine, and then I got rid of the stock carbs and I put 2 big Mikuni carbs on it, so 2 into 4. And then the exhaust was 4 into 1, 4 into 2 into 1. It was a beast. I mean, you could hear the induction roar off the carbs. Yeah. You throttled it. And I said to him, I said to the customer, "Be careful. These are slide carbs. It's all or nothing. This is like this bike's like
an old 2-stroke. Yeah,
it's like a bull. It's like it is all or nothing. There's no cruising on the Northman. It's not a happy run around. It's like no. And he took it out for the first ride, and he thought, he was brushing me off, going, "I know how to ride bikes. I know he's a cocky guy," which was ace. But he took it out, and he throttled it coming off a roundabout, and the front wheel went up, And he says he's never been so scared in his life. I mean, we were getting 55, 60 horse on the back wheel, and it's a light bike, the old five. And I'd taken half the weight out of it. It was completely stripped down, So all the weight I took off it and what I'd done to the engine, And he said he had to pull over at the side of the road. He was shaking for about 20 minutes.
have a little word with himself.
But yeah, it was so much fun. The short time I got to ride it, it was so much fun, and it sounded amazing. So there's your answer, the Northman. I wish I could have kept
awesome.
it. But...
No hesitation there whatsoever.
Yeah.
Lee's got a second question. With UFOs being shot down everywhere, do you think they are aliens? If not, what do you think they are?
It brings me back to the motorcycle thing. If there is life on Mars, it'll be riding an R100. You used to see them all the time when you're a bike builder. Oh, not another BMW. So what was the question?
Do you think there are aliens? If not, what do you think all these UFO things are that are being shot down?
Is this reference to the Chinese spy balloons?
I think the Chinese spy balloon is like a crescendo of a lot of recent activity in this UFO world.
Right.
It just seems like there's more and more and more. Evidence is the wrong word because it's not evidence, but there's a lot more stories coming to the fore of this. This is another. We don't know what this like. There's a lot of military footage now coming to the fore.
Yeah, I mean,
government footage.
The global, technology at the minute, where you hear about everything, don't you?
Yes.
I think I used to be into this. I used to be into the alien thing and the conspiracies and all that. Guess when I'm getting older, I don't think about it so much. I think we'd be very incredibly small-minded to think we were the only planet in the world, in the entire expanse of the universe that happens to have life on it. I don't really buy into this, we're the chosen ones kind of mentality. So yeah, I think it'd be small-minded to think we were the only thing out there, but I'm not qualified to make to tell you what and where and how.
I kind of think I'm the same as you. Like when you see, I love listening to people like Professor Brian Cox and stuff talk about the universe, because it just blows my mind. You just can't appreciate the scale of what allegedly is out there, eh?
And as you said, snippet that he says about when people say, "Isn't there more to it than that?" And he says, "What more do you need?" I mean, we're a tiny speck in time, where we've come from stardust, and we're alive, and we think, and we're conscious, and all that. And it's like, for this brief moment in time, and it'll all disappear again. And it's like, what more do you need than that?
Yeah. And I've got the same sort of attitude towards it as you, in that we simply can't be the only living organisms out there in that big soup. We can't just be the only thing. But another part of me thinks, I think a lot of this, what if it's us in the future coming back to have a look?
Well, there's that as well, isn't there?
Because who's to say that doesn't happen?
I am 100% sure that we don't know the half of it.
Of course.
Populations have been controlled since it used to be, religion that controlled populations, and now it's corporate media and technology that controls populations. There's always been a way, and I am 100% sure we don't know the half of it, less than half of it. I think there's an incredible amount going on in the world that we just choose not to think about, or because we've got more important things going on, like our breakfast or whatever.
This is it. We're very easily
distracted,
preoccupied with other stuff. Just ridiculous, mundane bollocks, which we seem to focus our attention on. And I totally agree with you. I think that there are people, organizations out there who are very aware of that, and they're very clever and know what strings to pull in order to focus all of our attentions on other things so that we're not looking over here.
Yeah, we're not rebelling.
Come over
here.
Yeah.
If keep us scared and in our houses, and we're not out on the streets rebelling, and that's always been the way, hasn't it? Like I said, it used to be religion that did that. And I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for social media, Instagram specifically. It's given me my platform, and I'm, it's most of my business comes through Instagram, directed to my website, and that social aspect. So I am in that world, whether I like it or not.
Same.
But then when I step back, often I get cross with it because I'm thinking, well, this, I can see the control. I'm an older guy. I've not. I remember when, like you, we're very similar age. You said I'm 47. I remember a life before the internet, quite clearly. And, I was a child of the 80s, and I lived through the 80s, which is remarkable. Any of us did. We had no.
You feel quite fortunate now, don't you? I genuinely feel fortunate not to have had internet.
There was no car seats, no crash helmets, we didn't have to wear a helmet on a bike. We just
stayed out all night.
We were out from 9 o'clock in the morning till it got dark.
Yeah. You made your own way to school. Yeah.
When you see the street lights coming on, that's time to come home. Go have dinner at your mate's house. What was that guy? I heard. Don't get arrested. Don't get molested. Come home. When the lights come on. We grew up like that, didn't we? Yeah. I think because of that, I have a very sort of suspicious view of it, and I can step back and I can think, right, this is control. I mean, you look through your Instagram feed and you're being sold stuff. You're being told how to act, and the endless self-help, gurus that posting crap you don't need to know. It's just full of people. People putting them on a pedestal, saying, "No, this is how everyone needs to think, behave, and survive." And yeah,
I loved social media when it first came out. I remember a girl I was seeing at the time. Sorry, Mrs. Teapot. I remember this girl telling me, "Oh, are you on Facebook?" And I was like, "What's Facebook?" And she told me about it, and I was like, "What are you, 12?" And then obviously I got myself on it, and I loved the fact that it would be me and you communicating over great distance. Like I could be at the other end of the world and I could chat with you, and you could have direct correspondence with the real people from different places, and you heard what was going on from them. Absolutely. And I loved it. It was like, yes, knock off all the the news and the media that feed you all the bullshit. We're dealing with real people one-on-one here. But you see it now, don't you? And exactly all that's happened is that old school world has now worked it all out eventually that, okay, we just start utilizing this now, and we'll do everything that we used to do, but we'll do it here, and it's instant and it's direct and it's got
and arguably reach. A lot more effective than it used to be as well.
Totally. Because now what it gets us all questioning everything now. I look at stuff now and like, I look at it and go, okay, but is it true? What's the source? Who are these people? What other stuff have they done? You have to start doing a lot of fact checking yourself now.
Do you think we know too much as society? I mean, like 100 years ago, through history, you just start to focus on you, your family, your survival. Now we're filled with everything. I mean, all over the world, we're just, it's got a mental health point of view. We're stressing about things.
I think that's difficult.
Rightly so. It's the human brain ready for all this information?
I think it's funny. I think it's good to be worldly wise. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
It's good to have an appreciation about different countries and different cultures and what other people are going through and what they're doing. And at the moment, there's poor folk out in Turkey and Syria. What's going on over there? It's I think it's important for us as a species, as people, to have that empathy for others and to realize how fortunate you are to be in certainly for me, how fortunate I am to be in my position. Other people listening to this, they might be, they might be in horrible situations and going through hell at the moment, and
absolutely.
They might not feel very fortunate. I get that. I understand that. But yeah, I think, as you said, we're seeing this mental health epidemic. Like everyone's got PTSD apparently now, which I'm not playing it down, because everyone deals with stress in different forms, don't they? But it used to be, it was only the military that got PTSD, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was like, now everyone's got it, like blooming hell, their favourite show gets cancelled off the TV, and all of a sudden people apparently are struggling to deal with that. So it's, I just, in my head, it almost plays a lot of things down, doesn't it?
I had this conversation with my wife the other day. I mean, it's difficult. We've got two small children, and are going into this world. We're lucky that we're both teachers, and we both work with kids, and we understand it, or training for that. But yeah, there seems to be this sort of epidemic of everyone needing a diagnosis,
Yeah.
And that's great if people really think that they need, they've got a problem and it needs sorted out. That's absolutely fantastic. But it just
get
seems
help. Yeah.
But there seems to be this thing at the moment where you're not normal unless you've got something wrong.
And it's almost like it's
a label, if you like.
It's almost like it's become in vogue. To not have an issue. That I don't want to play these things down, because, as you said, if you do have an issue, if you're not happy, then by all means go and get the help for it. But it does. I do look at things now, especially with kids. Kids that are growing up now, they have got so much to deal with compared to what we had to do. Because for us, like, if you were having a bad time and you went to school, like, say you were getting bullied when you turned up at school. Well, generally, you could, by the time when you got home, well, you weren't being bullied anymore. Yeah, you still have to deal with all that. It's still on your mind, but you weren't having to you weren't having to deal with it once you were at home. They weren't turning up at your house.
There was an escape, wasn't it? That was just what school was, and you come home and you were safe again.
All the time.
And that is terrifying, isn't it?
And it's not just people at your school. You're opening yourself up to the entire planet. Anyone that's got internet access could have a pop if they want to have a pop. So, I do sympathise and just think, Jesus, I'm so glad I'm past my formative years to that extent now. Because it's got to be.
It's terrifying as a father, to two young children that are going into that world and doing your best for them. As you said, though, I have quite a big follower base in sort of Malaysia and India because of the CG125 thing.
Yeah.
Big scenes out there for customizing and stuff, and I get so many people getting in touch with me, and from all over the world, and that is amazing. That is amazing when you can talk to somebody just and help them.
Yes.
With their projects from thousands of miles away. I love that.
Yeah. When you utilize the technology and social media for the good things that you can do, it's an amazing tool, isn't it? The impact you can have and other people can have on you, irrespective of geographical location, and the reach that you can have, it's awesome. And I really do think social media it's the gift and it's the curse, isn't it? At the moment, it seems to be like that. It's a yin and
we'll all get our heads around it at some point, no doubt.
I think, yeah. We're gonna, and things are all happening so much quicker now, aren't they? That it already feels like the whole, to use the term, this woke period that we've been going through. That almost feels like that's on the turn now, and people are starting just to level out, and we're not going too far one direction, and we're starting to bring things back. And okay, right, let's identify what we need to here and sort it all out. It's human nature, isn't it? We'll sort it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And that all came from the aliens conversation.
I was just about to say, how the fuck did we get onto that from aliens?
Have you ever had a conversation with Alan from Kilted Bushido? Because it runs very similar to this. You end up just going off.
Yes, I have done. We've just had a little, like a video chat a couple of times, especially during lockdown and stuff. You just, all of a sudden chat about stuff.
3 hours have gone by and you've not really talked about anything.
yeah, definitely. Right, last one of the Patreon questions. Sorry, these beers have a habit of exploding when you open them. So
That's all right, no worries.
Right, last one. Chris Kemp. Hi, guys. At some point, we will eventually run out of older, easily customizable bikes. How do you see the future of custom bikes with all the electronics and emission controls, etc.?
Right. Yeah, I mean, as I touched on before, like the donor bikes for my 125s are getting...
Yeah.
It's kind of a double-edged sword because people are seeing my builds and then wanting to emulate them on those little ones, and then that means the donor bikes are getting rarer or the price is going up.
Buy up your stock, mate. Buy up the stock.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get that. I try and save bikes from scrap. You know, I don't like tearing into a perfectly beautiful stock bike. You know, I wouldn't buy a CB, you know, a 1977 CB 550 in beautiful condition just to tear it down. One, there's no point because most of it goes in the bin anyway, or, you know, recycling. And two, because, you know, these things should be kept on the roads. So I'm generally trying to save things from the scrappy when I build. But yeah, at some point, yeah, those old, like we said, tubular frame classic motorcycles are going to be starting getting rarer and rarer. Some of mine are coming from America, though. I mean, America's just littered with bikes. I mean, there's motorcycles just lying around the place apparently. So you can import them from those sort of countries, but. Yeah, it'll develop. The scene's already developing, you know, and you know, as those bikes run out, people will, the younger generation will start, you know, hitting the newer bikes, and it's a natural sort of progression. When I was a kid, it was all Mark I Escorts and Vauxhall Astras, you know.
Yeah.
And now, you know, people are doing Subarus, Mitsubishis, and you know. All the Japanese scene, and yeah, it's just natural progression, isn't it? The new young guys will come in and start using more modern bikes, I think.
Do you see?
But as far as the technology goes, sorry,
go on. No, go on, mate. Sorry, there's a wee delay there. Apologies. I
mean, one of the reasons the Northman was so expensive was the technology in it. It had the full sort of Motor Gadget Blue system in it, so I'd taken out all of the stock hardware. It has a complete lithium-ion, you know, electrical system in it, GPS tracking, alarms, you know, the whole shebang, all controlled by the little Motor Gadget computer, keyless ignition. You could even turn the ignition on from your phone.
Really?
Which to everyone was like, in our little community, why do you need Bluetooth on your motorcycle? And I was one of them. I was saying, well, you just put your phone in your pocket and go. You don't need that on your bike. And I said that very loudly in our little community. And then I built the Northman. I'd booked it in for to be tested. Why can't I remember what that's called?
MOT?
No.
MOT?
To have the carbs done and tuned, and I guess completely gone blank. Anyway, I booked it in. This guy was like £500 an hour, and I booked it in. I'd taken it all the way to North
£500 an hour.
£500 an hour. This guy was, and I'd booked him for the morning, and I got there, and I was already about 10 minutes late, and I'd left the keys at home. No. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then I suddenly had the realization, it's all right, I've got my phone in my pocket. So we spent all day.
Just looked at you. What?
We spent all day tuning these carbs with me starting it off my phone.
Oh, on the dyno. You're talking about putting it on the dyno?
Yeah, there you go, right. Dyno. I don't know why that word, yeah.
It's been bugging me while you were talking. I was like,
we spent all day dyno testing this, and I was just starting and stopping it from my mobile phone, which was brilliant. So that was the answer. Yes, that's when you need it.
I'm like that, you know, with keyless bikes. I always thought, don't be ridiculous, but now obviously I've got the big GS and it's keyless, and it's amazing, and I love keyless now. But what I really don't like is things like some of the Triumphs and the KTMs. They're keyless ignition, but you need the key to open the petrol tank, the petrol cap. And I'm just like,
yeah, so it becomes
that's
why.
really annoying. Yeah, it's just, I've got to get, I only have to put my hand in my pocket and get the key out. But I'm like, I don't need the key for the ignition. Why have I got to get the key out?
Yeah, well, the Northman had this thing where you could program it at distance. So you walk up to it and you get within 1.5 meters of it and it all lights up for you, you know,
Wow.
which is cool. You're not legally allowed to start the vehicle from your phone in our country. Right. I think there is technology out there that you can do that. You can start from, you know, you can be 100 yards away and start your bike in the car park. But it's all lit up, ignition on, which is pretty cool.
I didn't know they had that in bikes. Wow. Every day's a school day. Right, that is all the clan questions. Thank you very much, everybody that left the clan questions.
Thank you.
We've still
That's
got,
cool.
well, there's a load of Instagram and a couple on Facebook. Are you okay for time?
Yeah, fine.
Cool. Do you need a toilet break or anything?
I'm all right for the moment, but I am 47, so you know.
Yeah, no worries. Right, we will fire over to Instagram, so that's at TeapotOne Insta, and obviously I will leave all of Jonathan's links down below as well. Okay, first question. That's Gus at Man Cave Makings.
Oh, like Gus. He's off on his travels around the world, isn't he?
He is. He's a top fellow, isn't he? He's been on as well. Really good, nice lad. So Gus says, fit like in lads. So he's ask Bruce what that means, Jonathan. First question. Can you describe the time or moment you knew you were a bike guy? And looking back at that time, how does it feel now to have a business building bikes the way you want?
Right, that's difficult. Because like I said, I've been on two wheels since I was young, as far as I was a bit of a frustrated mod, I guess. And I had scooters and I loved that. That's when I sort of got into the fact that, you know, the freedom of it, even though they were small capacity bikes. But then when it really hit me this time was, like I said, about the whole idea when I was building my first bike was I'd be on my way to work and I'd be thinking, I can't wait to ride my bike down this road. Or, you know, I'm going to go here and then go there on it, you know, and getting on it and taking it out for its first ride and knowing that I'd built it and it was working. That's the moment that I went, right, I'm doing this now. This is all I want to do. You know, that's when I fell in love with it. Absolutely.
And now, like, how does it feel now to be living your dream?
It's amazing. I feel incredibly privileged. It is massively hard work. It's 24/7. When I'm not building the bikes, I'm thinking about them, or I'm maintaining my social media presence, my, you know, that side of the business. So it's all encompassing. Is that the right word? All
yeah.
Mm-hmm. My family have completely bought into it as well. We go to the Malay Mile every year as a family, and the kids love it. My wife loves it. She likes the music.
Oh, that's good.
Festival side of it, and the community is amazing. So yeah, it's brilliant, and I feel incredibly privileged to be, you know, relatively sort of successful in it at this moment. And I don't. You don't take any of it for granted. It's a privilege, and I absolutely love it. Does that answer the question?
Are you a control freak as well? Like, do you? I am. Something I've certainly identified since going full time at this, in that, you know, I want to write the theme tune, I want to sing the theme tune, I want to play the theme tune. For people have said to me, why don't you get somebody in to help with the edits? And I'm like, it would really help, because I've got a massive backlog of editing, and it takes me a long time to do it. I just can't relinquish the control side of things to other people.
That's it exactly. Yeah. I know I need to get somebody in to help. I need somebody that can be stripping donor bikes and, you know, doing those sort of jobs. But to allow me to get onto the building and the fabrication and all that, I'd find it very difficult to pass that off, because I'm a builder, I'm not a businessman. I'm not in this for the money or the business side of it. I'm in it because I want to build bikes, and I love building bikes, and I have a vision that I need to create. And that's the joy for me. I'd find it incredibly difficult to pass that on to somebody else. It'd be nice to teach somebody how I build the 125s and have that running. It'd be difficult for me to let that go, but I could see that being a benefit to the business if I could train somebody up to take the smaller bikes off me and let me concentrate on the bigger projects. I guess that would make perfect sense as a business, but yeah, I'd find it difficult. And I'd be on them all the time. Like, we can't let that go out like that. Yeah, it has to be this way.
Yeah. Do you have the imposter syndrome feeling?
Constantly, and I did as a teacher all the time.
Did you?
I was good at it, and I know I was good at it because I rose quite quickly through it. But yeah, I'm a chronic sufferer of imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm going to get found out as a fraud all the time.
I'm the same.
Like, does this guy actually know anything? Especially is because a lot of my peers in this business have been doing it forever, and I'm relatively new to it. Like I said, I'm just lucky. I built a couple of good bikes. Absolutely. I think everybody does a little bit, don't they? I don't think anybody's really.
Do they? Like, it's something I've wondered about, because I get people asking me, on the editing side of things, that they ask, well, how could you do a vid or some tutorials on how you edit, or like, how do you plan tours? How do you pack for your all this sort of stuff. And in my head, I'm just like, well, I just wing it. I'm just winging it. I'm just self-taught, and I don't feel like I'm any good in particular at anything, and I'm winging it. And it's like, there's got to be somebody else out there more qualified.
Yeah, you clearly are. I mean, I'm the same. I taught myself through building my first bike. I completely taught myself. And you're gonna get to that question in a minute, I'm sure. But and as I said before, when even though you got a clear image of the bike, the process of how to get it to that image is sometimes, well, I've just got to start and see where it goes,
Yeah.
And then the problem often figures itself out, to the final solution. The final look of the bike. So yeah, there is a lot of that. But I've always been that if I've had this thing, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
You don't reach out to people if you're stuck on something. Somebody will be kind enough to give you time and help.
Yes.
And I'm often on the phone to the people, on Instagram, or getting in touch with people to see, I just need another set of eyes on this, or how would you do this? I've never done this bike before. Can you tell me a bit? I mean, taking on the K100, because like I said, I'm all Honda normally, so that's a learning curve in itself. I now know all the wiring system for a Honda back to front. I know all the colours, off by heart. So I know what everything does, all the components. I can do them in my sleep almost. But that's a whole different, whole different setup entirely. Yeah. And it's all. I'm a carb guy. That's all fuel injected. That's a learning curve, definitely. So there's a really good K100 community out there, and they've all been really, really nice at sort of welcoming me in and helping me out.
Yeah, that's what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? It's nice to know that you have that imposter syndrome thing as well, because that's something that runs through my head all the time. Is just like, do other people like have this feeling of, how am I getting away with this? It's like, what? Someone's going to find me out in a minute. Yeah.
Do you look back at your old stuff? I mean, I don't do it very often, but I did a couple of months back. I went through my old Instagram posts, scrolled all the way down to that first build, and some of the stuff I put on there, and I thought, now, what on earth was I doing? what on earth was that? I'd found a solution to a problem with minimal equipment. I built my first bike with like a DIY toolkit in a very small space in the back of this workshop. Because the rest was full of junk. And yeah, some of the stuff, but I'm leaving it there. It shows my learning curve, and
Totally.
And that's got to be helpful to other people. But yeah, I do look back and cringe at some of those early videos or, things I did.
For me, like my videos sort of span the last 10, 11, maybe 12 years. So I look back on it, and it's, technology wise, I filmed my world trip on the first ever GoPro. It's a Hero 1.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had a Hero 2 with me as well, both of which were bag of shit. And, the quality's terrible. It's like 720 was... It's like what is 5K these days. 720 was amazing back in 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
1080 was just like, wow, that's cinema stuff. You're never going to get that. And then 1080 arrived. So I look back on it, and it's like a technology quality side of things. It's just the resolution's crap and the sound's crap. But people have said to me that added to that footage because it makes it even more raw. It's the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. I was just Joe Blogs with a camera, filming and winging it as I went. That seems to appeal to a lot of people. So, because in my head, I'm like, I would love to do the trip again, the big trip, with the technology that I have now and my sort of knowledge of editing and sound and all that sort of stuff. I would love to do it to make more of to do it justice. I think that's what in my head would be, like with drone footage and off the bike footage. But maybe that
takes the character, would it? Would it lose the character of that original?
That's right. Yeah, it would take that away. I think what that trip was.
Yeah, I built the first bike, like I said, with all the fabrication. I borrowed an arc welder. So I had a stick welder and a hacksaw. So all my fabrication was, hand sawn, pieces of steel, arc welded together. Now I've got lathes and, lathes, cutting tools, proper, good quality MIG welder. And, the tooling now is why I can build the bikes that I'm building and the learning curve, I guess.
It's all part of the process, though, isn't it? It's all part of the process for sure.
Yeah. It's making do with what you can build a bike with with very rudimentary equipment. You've just got to think outside the box, solve the solutions. How am I going to do this with the kit I've got?
Yeah. Gus has got another question. He says, question for both of you. Can you describe what happiness means to you when out on your bike? What bike, where you're riding, and what do you feel? Well, we've touched on that, haven't we?
Yeah, it's the freedom, isn't it? It's the complete engagement in what you're doing. Because when you're on the bike, you have no choice other than being completely engaged in that single activity of the riding and staying alive. But that's in the back. That's not there, is it? No. It's just you're in the moment. You have to be. You have to be right there. You're not experiencing it through a second lens or through anybody else. That's it. And I think that's sadly lacking today, that feeling of being completely immersed in something. We went, my wife, just a quick example. My wife loves Florence and the Machine. She's a redhead. She loves that. So we went to a concert the other week, and I love them too. I think she's an amazing front woman. One of the best in the business if you get a chance to go see him. But the amount of people that were sat at that, stood at that concert watching, this amazing show through the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're thinking about what they're going to do with it afterwards. They're missing they're missing the moment. And I think that's what it is. And, sadly lacking at the moment is that opportunity to be completely 100% focused on what you're doing. And riding a motorcycle gives you that, doesn't it?
When you first said about people are lacking that physical that physical element of experiencing something, I was thinking, again, because of social media, because everything is so accessible to everybody on a phone now. Like, you can, if you want to see what it's like to be in, I don't know, to go backpacking in Southeast Asia, well, you can YouTube it and have a look, can't you? And you can experience it. It's almost like doing it. Yeah, without physically going. And maybe I'm talking out my arse, but maybe some people will look and go, well, I don't need to go and do it because, you know, I know what's out there. I don't need to bother with it. So they're missing out on that. Like, for us, do you remember, like, the people, I wasn't one of those people, but people at school, or when you move off into the working world, people who've done like a gap year and they've been away backpacking. Yeah. And it was just like, you did what? I remember turning up at uni and a couple of people would be like, oh yeah, you know, they were a year older because they've been away and done a gap year. And I was like, what's a gap year? And like, they've been backpacking all around the world. And it's like, holy fuck, I didn't know you could do that. Wow, what's it like? Tell me about it.
Yeah, my brother was, he's all his adult life, he's traveled around the world. And he's a teacher too. And he spent a lot of time in South Korea after he qualified. And he's in Abu Dhabi for a long while. And now he's in Hong Kong. But he did the same. He did the Greek islands when he was at uni as well. And that's amazing. He can just throw himself into any country and be perfectly at home and immerse himself in that, you know, and I love that. That's I don't get to see him very often, but when we do, it's amazing. He's you know, we used to fight like as kids. We you know, as brothers do when you're growing up, but now he's like my best mate.
I noticed that because I get people on who've been away and done loads of traveling and stuff, and you notice those people tend, I would say they always are the type of people who are much more open-minded about things. They're much more they're just more at peace. You know, it's like just this inner peace people have. Obviously, you get that from people who haven't been away and done the traveling. There are genuinely people out there who are just very open-minded and very chilled out about everything. But it seems to be a common trait amongst those who have. And like I said to you, I was not this person before I traveled. I was the polar opposite. I was very uptight, very withdrawn, very you know, I was a laugh amongst my own friends, but I was selective as to who I allowed into that group. You know, I didn't trust people particularly outside of my little circle. Whereas now I'm an open book now. Maybe too much of an open book. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know what my point was from that. But
it's an education, isn't it? You know, traveling around the world, meeting new cultures, and immersing yourself in that. Is massively character building, isn't it? And something everyone should try and do is to push themselves out of their bubble and go and see. I was lucky that we travelled. You know, my parents took us all over the place when I was young. We went some great places. Africa, we were at Kenya. I mean, you struggle to go to Kenya nowadays. Because of the troubles, but we went at a time where it was a beautiful place to be, and I fell in love with it. We were in Mombasa, and going on the safaris, and you know, and experiencing the people and all that. And we didn't do the typical. We didn't do the typical sort of touristy bits. We went for the experience of it, and that's somewhere I'd like to go back, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, Africa's definitely somewhere. Africa's definitely somewhere I want to go back to.
I'd love to take a really big adventure bike Damn it. Yeah.
There's a young lassie who has just finished a trip on an electric bike. She took one of these cake electric bikes, which they have like interchangeable battery modules, which you can just plug into the wall and charge them up. She's just gone basically from Morocco all the way down West Africa, all the way to South Africa by herself.
Amazing.
It's just an insane journey. She's home now, so I want to try and slide into her DMs and say, do you want to come on the podcast for a chat? Because I think that I only found out about it literally about a month ago. So even just in this last month of following her journey, it's epic, fantastic what she's done.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Proper trailblazing stuff. Nobody has done that, and to do that route, even on a petrol bike, is a feat. That is a feat. There's not many people on the planet who've managed that, and she's done it. As a very small single woman on an electric bike.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Right, and the last part from Gus at TeapotOne, you managed to find a decent rowie yet? Asking for a friend. Rowies, they're butteries. Have you heard of a rowie, of a buttery? Have you ever heard of it?
No, not a rowie. No,
it's a northeast Scotland thing. It's heart attack in a bun, basically. It's right. Okay, it is.
Isn't that most of the Scottish diet?
Yeah. But this has probably killed more people than anything out there. It is. It's like a butter and pastry or dough type mixture, which is flat, and then I think it's deep fried. And then what you do normally is you heat them up, you toast them, and then you put more butter on the top. They're just amazing, honestly.
Right.
Oh my God, they're stunning. So I had a chat, Martin from, the Helmet Inspection Company. He came on and he's from the Northeast. He's from Aberdeen, up near where Gus is from. And we got chatting about butteries, rowies, and he sent me a pack of 10 down. And it was just like, before the wrapper was off, I'd eaten like 4 before I'd even got the wrapper off. They were amazing. Right, you need to... If you ever meet Gus, ask him to bring you a rowie.
I will do. Absolutely.
Stunning. Right. Oh, here's Al. Kilted Bushido Builds. How you doing, Al?
Hey, Al.
Hi, guys. Hope you're good. My first question for J. Hull Moto is, what is the best skill that you've learned since you started out on your own? And second, we'll cover the second one in a second. So best skill you've learned since starting by yourself.
Right. Well, it's been a massive learning curve, like the biggest I've ever been on. But the metal, not one skill, but it's got metalwork in general, I think. I taught myself to weld. I couldn't do any of the fabrication that I do without being I'm not saying I'm a good welder, but a half decent welder. I had to teach myself to, and I had some help. I had people to talk to, getting the right kit, equipment. That was a big outlay at first. Learning to turn on a lathe. Those were the big ones. They're the game changers when you're modifying a motorbike, being able to do those things yourself. And that's when you become a builder and not an assembler.
Yes.
Like I said, you can build up with off the peg custom parts. You can modify, customize a motorcycle, but you're not building unless you've got that sort of those fabrication skills and you are chopping a bike up and you are remodeling it from its bones, and that's what it is. That the metalwork skills separate you, like I said, from as a builder. You're then a builder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was definitely the biggest, the best skills I think I've acquired since I started. And then, when you get a new piece of equipment, training yourself to use it properly and effectively. And, they're all learning curves. And, I'm lucky that over the years, I've gone from this tiny corner of a single garage into building this workshop, and, it's all immersive, and, there's still loads of things I want. Like I need a sandblasting booth and all sorts, because I'm still doing that outside and sweeping up after myself. So there's still stuff I need and skills I'd like to acquire. I'd like a decent milling machine and things like that, but I've got everything I need right now to build the bikes I want to.
But it's like it's all little lessons in life, isn't it? Which I think maybe become apparent with age as you grow in years and your experience of lots of different things broadens. Something that I've realized is that you can't be good at everything, or you can't be great at everything, but you can learn new skills. And the amount of people that go, I'd love to do that, but I can't do this. And you're like, well, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that to begin with. You've got to put yourself out there and make the effort.
You've just got to do it. Yeah.
Take that first step. Go.
And lots of people like young wannabe bike builders get in touch with me and say, how do you start? How do you do it? Well, you just start. It was difficult the first time I took an angle grinder to a bike. Never gets boring, by the way. Angle grinders are loads of fun. Chopping up a bike's ace. I had my Matt and Mark came up, made the trip from where are they? Nottingham. Made the trip up because I said you should make the first cuts in this project. So they both came up and they chopped the subframe off the beamer. That never gets old, but it is a bit of a hairy moment because that's your point of no return with a motorcycle. As I said before, you've got a perfectly good bike and you've just chopped it in half.
I was going to say, is that not like a massive oh shit moment?
Yeah, especially if you cut it in the wrong place. Or I still with the 750. I had to do a very extensive frame mod because the customer wanted to put a 1977 tank on a 1981 frame, which was the dual crossbar. So we couldn't do that. So I had to convert this 750 from a dual crossbar to a single crossbar while still keeping all the structure. And that was a massive job, and when you take the tension out of the frame, if you cut it wrong or you don't have it clamped up right, it all blooming moves. As soon as you cut a piece out and it's all shifted, and then you're done. Then it's new frame time because it's all it has to be perfectly in line. It has to be perfectly straight. So you got to be very careful, and you got to think about how you're going to do it. I talked to Al about that. I rang him up because I daren't do it, and I got Al on a call, and he went, oh, have you got it all buckled down? And I was like, yeah, it's as tight as I can. And he convinced me to make the cut.
I didn't realise that. That it'll all bend out of shape as soon as you...
It can do, yeah.
Of course
and when you weld it. If you put heat into it, all of a sudden, even though you've got it clamped up, it'll move. It'll shift, and you've got to be dead sure it's not going to before. And these are all things you learn by mistake.
Wow. Jesus, there is quite a bit to this then, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then, like I said, worrying about putting all that structure you've just cut out back in it, to make it safe. Yeah.
Wow. Right. Al says, second question for both of you. Are you coming up to Edinburgh for the Scottish Motorcycle Show in March? Do you know, I've never been to that. I've never been. Have you ever done it?
No, I've never been, but I'm using, Al's director of European NWT Cyclotronic.
Yeah.
There's your plug, Al.
I'm glad you did it because I was frantically in my head. I was trying to, what was the name of that?
Yeah, brilliant bits of kit. And I'm using one for the 750, the CB 750. So that should be ready in the next few weeks. And it's actually going to a customer in Aberdeenshire. And we're using it's going to go up on this stand at hopefully if it's done. It will be. So it's going on display at the Scottish Motorcycle Show, and then heading up to Aberdeenshire for the customer.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, I've never done the Scottish bike show. I'll need to do that one year for sure. Right, next one. Cheers, Al. Thanks very much for your questions, pal.
Thanks,
next
Al.
one, Josh Pillsbury. Looking forward to it. My question for Mr. Hull. How did you go from your former career to building bikes? I'd love to learn that journey. We kind of touched on that.
Yeah, we kind of, I did that. Hi, Josh, by the way. Josh is a brilliant chap. If you're not following on Instagram, do. There's loads of amazing lifestyle stuff, motorcycle lifestyle stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a difficult journey. I mean, I won't go through it all again because we've done that in quite a lot of detail, haven't we? But it was difficult going from being, like I said, quite a successful sort of 45 grand a year job to ditch all that with a young family to pursue building motorbikes for a living. Again,
ballsy move.
Yeah, it was a tough decision, but I was lucky. I had the support, around.
Looking back, what's your biggest lesson, do you think, that you've learned from that decision to move in particular? Is there anything that really jumps out at you?
I mean, there's no guarantees. I'm in a good place right now, but it's up and down all the time, and there's no guarantee it's going to work. So I'm riding this little roller coaster for as long as I can, I guess. Yeah. But I think I felt so trapped, as I touched on, and didn't think there was anything. Didn't think there was a way out of my old career. And then I just did it. At some point you've got to say to yourself, just have a go. Yeah. What's the bottom line? And I plucked up the courage to do it, I guess. And I think that's, if you really, really want to do something, just crack on. That's my words of wisdom.
Again, it's taking that first step, isn't it? It is that first step, whether that's cutting into the bike, whether it's handing in your resignation, whatever it is. I've said it umpteen times on here before. People ask about these big, going on a big trip. Setting off that first day is the hardest part. It's that initial step into the unknown. And then after that, you just deal with whatever's getting thrown your way at that time, don't you? You just deal with it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Cheers for that one, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Next one, Project Cafe Muscle. Hi, TeapotOne and J Hull Moto. I met Jonathan at the Bike Shed show last year. Lovely bloke, but we only briefly had a chat at the end. I had a bike on display too. My questions would be, how many bikes did you build before deciding to do it full time?
Well, I'm losing track now. I think I'm on my 8th or 9th CG, 125.
Yeah. With
another 3 in bits. When I went full time, I had the Northman under my belt and about 6 bikes under my belt, and the Northman probably. Yeah. Wow.
That is fairly quick.
It is quick, yeah. It's not many to make that decision, is it? Yeah.
No, mate, fair play to you. If you know, you know.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, like Thomas Benzin, I mean, he's got to be well into his 30s or 40s of bikes. He's turned out, all of them beautiful. But yeah, so still early days and young, and and that's where the imposter syndrome comes in, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess, and the look that I keep talking about. But yeah, so surprisingly few, probably.
It was. I
just knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah, like you said, when you know, don't you? Like it's right. Okay, you either shut up or you just get on with it. One or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you have to make that
do
move.
Or die, all that.
It was interesting what you said there about how it's ups and it's downs. Like we'll see what tomorrow brings, what next month brings. That's something I've struggled with from day one of going self-employed. And I have a lot of friends who are self-employed. They've always been self-employed. They've never done the corporate world thing. They've always just been out and done their own thing. And they were just like, eventually, you just learn to deal with it. It's just part of being self-employed. So the first sort of 10, 15 years, you'll be like that. And then you just accept it. And I sort of look at it and going, please tell me you're joking.
10, 15 years.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it is something though, isn't it? It is something that's in your mind constantly, because you're very aware that it wouldn't take much for certain like supply chains to stop and for effectively the money to stop coming in. Well, that's everything has an impact, doesn't it? Global economy, everything has an impact.
I've had a couple of customers, one in particularly that fell on hard times and then got halfway through a build, and then and that's I massively sympathise, and it's got to be awful. I've had a lot of that in my life. But then but that has a massive effect. Mm-hmm. The margins for me are really tight, and the cash flow is a constant battle as being self-employed. And I'm a single entity in this business at the moment, and I have a house and a family to support. So regardless of what happens with my business, I have to take a wage to pay the bills, keep the light on, keep the heating on. In my house and support my family. So, when you can take you can take certain hits, but it wouldn't take much for for it to go belly up really quick, and that is a big stress in itself. And that's constantly on your mind. I've been lucky that whenever I've been in those points over the last, my first year of proper business, even though I've been building for a few years now, I've been lucky that things have come up that have helped me, or last minute orders coming in, and then the relief sets in, and you set up again for the next few. So you are living hand to mouth all the time. And as I've said, I'm not making big profits on these builds. I'm just getting paid for my hours, and that is something I wanted to do at the start. So yeah, it's same as being a self-employed builder, painter, decorator, plumber, electrician, whatever your job is. You've got the same you've got your same problems, and that's that's all part of it, I guess, isn't it? But
it is. It's sort of it's the price you pay for the freedom of being
for the
your
freedom.
own boss.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, totally.
That's exactly it. When I was teaching, as much as I hated it towards the end, I knew I had that regular wage coming in,
Absolutely.
and that it would cover, it would keep me alive and support my family.
Yeah. And everyone's told me it does get easier, and it does get easier. It is getting easier. It's not. I still do lie awake at times, for sure. Especially when maybe it's not so much now, because I can do my tours again. So I'm very fortunate in that my tours are in high demand. So I chuck a tour out and it sells out, which is fantastic. But I'm aware that will likely end at some point. Like the novelty of coming away may well dry up, and I won't have the demand that there is now. And again, global economy, you just need a change in the global, a downturn in the global economy, and people feel like they haven't got the money to splash out on luxuries, don't you? So, like, I've had sleepless nights for sure, and it does keep you awake at times. But again, like we've discussed umpteen times through this, I wouldn't give any of that up to go back to my old life, because I don't think I could. Yeah. Having the freedom now, and it's like, well, you just have to adapt and keep the dream alive, don't you? You just got to figure it out, whatever way.
Yeah, I mean, at that point where, like before Christmas, when I was seriously thinking, can I carry on with this? It was my wife that said, look, you've put so much into this. Yeah. You can't give up now. Yeah. And that was a real moment for us. That was pretty epic for me to hear that.
Sometimes they are right. Don't tell them that, but sometimes they are right.
Yeah. More often than not, perhaps, yeah.
Right, second question. With what you know now, what would you do differently if you were to start your custom bike business?
Well, it's still really early days. Like I say, when I set this up as well, I wanted it to fund itself. So this was a move that was probably a bit different. It might surprise people. Is that I made the decision. I didn't want to take out a big bank loan or a business loan or anything like that. I wanted it to fund itself, and for the most part, it has. There's been times where I've had help, but yeah, I've not had to, take out a big investment. I wanted it to, my first bikes. When I sold my first bikes, that went straight into expanding the workshop, buying equipment, funding the Northman, getting into that show scene, and it all started rolling. So at the minute, I'm still trying to do that. It's not that I wouldn't consider, investment from a third party to get into a decent unit and expand like I want to. I love what they're doing down at the Cotswolds, Coty Auto Tally. That idea of having a venue where with a big glass wall down the middle, you've got a workshop one side, you've got a venue and a cafe and a merchandise the other side. People can come in, have a cup of coffee, and watch a custom bike builder building a bike.
That's like what they're doing at Thornton 100, isn't it?
Yeah. And I like that, and that would be something I'd perhaps like to explore a bit further down the line. But at the moment, I just want to churn out really pretty bikes, and be privileged to get paid for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I get that. Right, Cleek 53. My question is, where do you draw inspiration from for your builds? Not necessarily from other builders. Is it architecture, nature, music, film, women, etc.?
Yeah, there's a lot of inspirational builders out there, and a lot of people that I go to and I talk to. People like Ziggy Moto, Paul. Constant inspiration. I've talked about Anthony Partridge, Maxwell Azan, Benzin, BJ over at Brickhouse Builds. These people are churning out beautiful bikes. Incredible at what they do. My own inspiration comes from right back to that 60s Ton Up Boys ethos. And I've said it before, that tagline, if it doesn't make the bike go fast, stop fast, or road legal, it's not there,
Yeah.
And minimalists stripping them right back to their bare bones. I love what Toby Southern's doing, that coach builder I talked about, the way he works with metal, the way he engineers, his shapes and his design. So I do look elsewhere. I don't know whether I look to sort of nature or things like that so much, and perhaps I should do. It's all about the lines for me. And I've said that before as well. It's getting the key to good design in motorcycles, cars, or whatever, is getting the lines right. And so many people get into bike building and they don't have a clear image. Have you heard that expression, a camel is a horse designed by committee?
No, I've never heard that. But it makes total sense. Yeah.
It's having a pop at the camel for no apparent reason. But, this idea that there's no clear image at the end, or it gets distorted by too many minds,
Yeah.
So having a single vision of what you want it to look like at the end, and not deviating from that. That's how I work it, I think.
And are you all about symmetry? I remember you saying about the lines and everything. So for you to look at a bike that's not symmetrical in like the headlights or anything at the front, does that just freak you out.
Sometimes, left and right symmetry, sometimes that can be really effective if it's not quite the same.
Right.
Like sometimes I like to see a petrol cap on the side of the tank or, something different like that. But I'm more, from a side-on view, I like getting them lines right. The tank has to flow through the seat, through the cowl. And I like parallels. So I think about the road and how the bike sits on the road, how the engine, levels up on the, from a design point of view, how it looks as it, flies past you. That's kind of where I go from. If there's a lot of builds that you can see where, especially on BMWs, I guess, because the tank's raked up naturally on the old Beamers, then, you've got it kinking one way or the other between the seat and the tank. And I hate seeing that. I want it to be a beautiful line all the way through the bike, Right. Like the GN 125s I touched on. The reason I don't use those as a donor vehicle is because the frame's already like that before you start. The engine's kicked up at the front and the tank's on an angle, and then the seat, it looks like somebody sat on it and broke it in the middle.
And broke the back.
And that's before you start. So getting the lines right. I'm
so envious of creative people like you that you have that ability to look at stuff and create stuff in your mind. I just don't have that. I'm definitely get the chisel and hammer in my hand and just start smacking away and then see what I get. I wish I could. But
there's some brilliant things being created that way as well. It's just individual processes, I guess.
I suppose so.
Everyone has a way.
Right. Cheers for that one. Next one, Dutch Shed Builds. I think I know the answer, but just to make sure, what bike would you love to work on to restore or hullify? We touched on that a few times, haven't we?
Yeah, well, I've met Uran one or two times, and we've obviously had a conversation, and I can't remember at what time. It changes constantly. So, like I said, it was a BMW, but now I've got one. I probably told him I wanted to rip the hell out of a Harley Davidson. So that might be it. But we'll see.
Well, that'll be the next project, mate.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, Farmfield Customs. I don't need to ask what bike Jonathan is most excited about this year because it's obviously our K100 collaboration. Yeah. But apart from that, who are your main influences and who is creating the most inspiring builds right now? Where do you see yourself in 3, 5, and 10 years' time? Biggest influences right now.
Yeah, that's like your girlfriend's dad, isn't it? When you're a teenager, asking you what your 5-year plan is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark's a really good friend, and we've known each other for about 5 years, and he comes up regularly to see me. I think what was the first question he said about?
Who are your main influences? Yeah,
my main influences. Well, I've talked about that. Like, I like seeing people re-engineer things at the minute. So not your typical bike builders, I guess, but people that are building, frames from scratch and completely re-engineering things. There's a few guys on Instagram at the minute that are putting these amazing sort of girder fork systems in modern bikes, and like what, as I keep saying, Maxwell Hazan, it builds some incredible things, like beautiful feats of engineering. So yeah, people like that, people are doing something like completely different, and I'm always trying to shoot for improving my skill set. So like my idea of the perfect bike builder keeps changing as I'm changing, I guess. Yeah, and those people close to me, like I mentioned, Bob Moore down the road. It's a constant sort of turned into my sort of second dad as far as bike building goes. Yeah.
And he said, where do you see yourself in 3, 5, and 10 years' time?
I'd like to see. I need to get, in order to be more productive, I need to get out of here. Though I love my workshop. and I've made it what it is. So I've got a lot of love for this little place because I spend all my time in it. Right, I built a big, put that extension on the front of it.
Yeah.
And in order to be more productive, I could do with 3 ramps, enough space to have 3 ramps on the go. So I'm not taking one off, putting one on all the time.
Is that in order to grow the business then, to grow the brand?
Yeah. So I can get more out.
Gotcha.
I don't ever want to rush builds. Mm-hmm. And I've got a few customers that are thinking, "Where's my blooming bike?"
But I've got that with videos. God, yeah.
Yeah. But I'd never want to rush them, especially as these things are in, people are putting their lives in there, literally putting their lives in my hands with these. So there's a lot of responsibility there. But in order to be more productive and more, working smarter, not harder, I guess. Yeah. I need the space now. I'm outgrown this, and I outgrew it a while ago. I'm making the best of it. So yeah, I need a good size room. And I think Mark knows that. I'd like to get into that venue, and that taps into the work I did in the music industry. Promoting concerts, promoting bands. I'd like to get into doing shows and have a venue.
Oh wow!
Centered around bikes.
Yeah.
So that's long term. But we'll see. Like I said, it's I'll keep pushing the snowball and see how big it's going to get.
Oh wow, man! Yeah. So you're talking about an actual venue, and would you then look at apparel and everything else that goes with it, with the whole bike scene, the custom bike scene?
I love that idea of people come in, spending the afternoon having a coffee and a chat and watching people build bikes. I think that's a lovely place to start, and then expand it from there. We've got this. I had a bike. The Northman was actually on display at the Motorist in South Kirby, just near me, and that's a beautiful venue. It's right next to an airport, which is where we did the Northman shoot. We got into the airport and we did the photographs in there. But the Motorist is beautiful. Really, really nice venue, nice people that run it. They have a body shop, they have a showroom, and they have a really nice restaurant and venue space.
Nice.
And every night they have a different sort of, it can be Japanese car night, it can be bike night, it could be, classic night. And it's probably where I want to be at some point.
Awesome. Wow, that's exciting.
Bringing people together around it, having somewhere where this community can get from Instagram and get from social media to actually get to be together and,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I like doing. I do meetups, particularly through my Patreon, and I love that. You're bringing people all together off of social media physically, and we just go off on the bikes and we have a weekend away somewhere, and it's great.
That's awesome. Amazing, yeah.
Right, last one of the Instagram questions. Arthur Cullen, 71. Question for Jonathan. Land's End to John O'Groats in 24 hours, A and B roads only. What bike?
I've been thinking about this one. Sensible Ed says, get on some big and scrambly. But me, being me, I'd like to do it on something really stupid. Good. So, can you do John O'Groats, Land's End, 24 hours, A roads and B roads on a Cub 50?
On a Cub 50?
Yeah. And if not, why not? Let's have a go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're never going to know until you try it, are you?
Yeah, I'd love to do something silly on one of my 125 scramblers. See how much one of them can take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if I'm going to do a challenge like that, I'd have to make it almost as hard as I possibly could. Yeah. So do it on something silly and little and see how far you get.
I love the little bikes, and I took a Sinus Terrain 125. Oh, no, it was it the Terrain or was it the Apache? It was one of the Sinus little 125s, and I did the I think they call it the Four Corners. Is it a 4 corner? It's an iron butt thing anyway. So from your start location, you've got to bring in Land's End, you've got to do St David's in Wales, you've got to do John O'Groats, and you've got to do Lowesoft, and then back to wherever your start point was. So it's it ranges between about 2,001 and 2,300 miles. And the idea for the iron butt is you have to do that within 48 hours. So I thought, I can't see me doing that on a 125 in 48 hours, but I'll see how long it takes. So I went off, and I think it took me, did it take 50 odd hours, 53 hours, I think? Right. And it was torture, but I loved it. I loved it. Brilliant. I love little bikes. I just love the wee 125, especially because I'm 20 odd stone and 6'3". It's great fun. Like I've touched on, my 125s, I get the odd person that coming on and the young lad, they want to start riding a custom motorbike because it's cool. Mm-hmm. But then they see the price of my 125s and obviously they can't afford it. They get a bit cross and go, "Oh, that's too expensive." But most of my customers for my 125s are seasoned bikers. Yeah, in the middle age that just want something little and fun to run around on. Totally. Or they want something nice to look at and have in a collection. But they're fun, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Little bikes. I won't have these people saying, "Oh, you need to get a bigger bike. What are you doing?" They're just, you can chuck them around. They're just, there's no, it's a bike. There's less. Yeah, it's a bike. There's nothing interfering with it. Less worry about that you're gonna, drop it, crash it, come off on a corner. You're not going to get done for speeding. It's just enjoy it, just fun around. Brilliant round towns, brilliant around the little country roads, loads of fun. And people are seeing that now. I think there's less stigma about smaller capacity motorbikes now. And there should be. They're right. The fun is coming back into it in the sense of like the smiles and the miles. That's coming back into it now. And it's not, as you just said, it's not about, what figures have you got in the engine? How much HP have you got? How many cc? Like, I couldn't give a flying huck anymore, to be honest. It's when you get on that bike and you either sit on it and it makes you smile, or once you turn the throttle or you turn the ignition on, if the bike makes you smile, if it's doing it, I don't care what that thing is. I mean, I've mentioned Squire's Bikers Cafe. That's also up in Sherburn, and they, they've got the biker gangs that go up there. Mm-hmm. They've got the big classic Harley riders and all that. But if I take one of the little 125s up there, it's got a crowd around it before I've even took my helmet off. Yeah. And there's a couple of guys that go up there on a Sunday, and they're big fellas, and they're coming in on the little DAX, or or the people coming in on the classic Cubs, and they're just as welcome, And there's the odd one, that'll take the mick, but they're just having a laugh and loving it. These guys on the Daxes are brilliant, and they're beautiful little bikes, for beautifully restored little things. Awesome, yeah, love it. Right, thank you very much to everybody who submitted the questions on Instagram. Last question, which is on Facebook. Now, I never understand this because I've got like over 110,000 followers on Facebook, and I get a few questions generally. I always get more questions on Instagram than I do on Facebook. But anyway, So the question here, Nathan Turner, who's your inspiration in getting into bike building? From Nathan from Saskatoon. Keep the podcast rolling. Cheers, Nathan. Again, I think we've pretty much touched on a lot of that. I ought to mention my dad. He's been I'm 47 years old. My dad's still my hero. He's awesome. He was an engineer. Well, he was a draftsman, factory floor engineer in the woodworking industry. So he's not chippy. He designed and built industry woodworking machinery. Eventually to the point where he was selling them. He became a salesman, and then he opened his own business, and then, director of his own company. And he's been an inspiration all my life. I grew up with a role model in the house all my life that never had to get a guy in to do something.
it was, we can do this ourselves, whether it's landscape gardening, electrical work, plumbing, building a garage on the side of your house, putting up sheds, whatever it was, we'd do it ourselves.
Traditional dad, yeah.
Yeah. So I've had that around me all my life. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. As far as getting into bike building, as I've mentioned, Thomas at Benzin Cafe Races was an inspiration and a big part of my first learning curve, and I'll be very grateful for him for all of that assistance early doors, and the fact that we both got bikes to the Bike Shed show at the same time. We both met there for the first time, and we both had bikes on display. It was a pretty awesome moment. So yeah. So well, that's a nice answer to that, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think we're all thankful that he was the inspiration, and you've made that move, mate, because they're beautiful looking bikes. Absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you very much. That's really nice to hear from you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to make it up to the Bike Shed show this year. I want to get up there at some point for sure, because I'm definitely falling into that scene now.
As a Scotsman, do you go up to London then?
Yes. Well, I
go up to Scotland and down to London from Yorkshire. It always feels like I'm going down that way,
I'm not in Scotland. I live in the southeast now. I live in Kent, so I go up into London.
So you are going up into London, right? Yeah. I wrongly assumed that you were up there, right?
No. I've been down here since 2000. I moved to London in 2000.
Yeah, right.
But the wife and I, she wants to. She's from Nottingham, but she wants to move to Scotland. Right. So when she finishes in our job, then we'll probably look at making a move, I think, at some point.
Lovely. Well, yeah, I was really surprised and nervous about Bike Shed Show. It was a big deal for me to get a bike in the pro category.
Yeah, I bet.
There, and nerve-wracking that, these, because it's such a big feature in the sort of this new wave scene we're in, of custom bikes. I felt a bit intimidated being there around all those, my bike in amongst all them builders that I've spoke about from all over the world. But it was so inviting. Everyone was amazing. I spent the whole weekend just talking to people. I'd lost my voice by the end of it. Meeting everybody was amazing. Absolutely. So it was a really good experience. I definitely recommend it. Really well run and put together. Vicky Manson-Moran, you can tell why she's the boss. You wouldn't mess with Vicky. Absolutely lovely, but you wouldn't cross her. Yeah. But all of them really, really welcoming, really friendly people. So yeah, recommend it.
Right, dude, we are through all the questions. So thank you very much to everybody that submitted questions across the platforms. Greatly appreciated. Jonathan, if people want to find out more about you, the company, the bikes that you do, where do they go?
Reach out to me on Instagram at jhullmoto. That's where most of my sort of business is and where I am most of the time. Or jonathanhull.co.uk. All the details getting in touch with me are on there. But you got any, I'm more than happy to help people out if they've got questions about building bikes or they're interested in buying one of mine.
Fantastic. I'll leave all the links down there below, folks. Down below, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Have you got a YouTube channel or anything like that?
No, you see, I'm not even on Facebook, mate. I know I probably should be. It's just another thing. I spend all my time maintaining. I'm a one-man band as you are. So I don't think I've got time for another platform. But people have told me I should have a YouTube channel.
It swallows up your time. I mean, I'd say the vast majority of my day is social media and content moderation and creation and just answering the comments and DMs and stuff. Yeah. But you have to do it, don't you? You've got to. I think if you put yourself out there,
you do.
Amongst the community,
I spend so much time, to answer. I don't like people. If somebody's left a comment, even if it's just to say thank you, I'll always return the comment. And if I get a DM in, I want to try and answer it. I don't so much like it when people just go, where get that light, or where get that exhaust. But if you've got a genuine question about how to build a bike and how to start, if you've got a question about how you do a certain process, I'll spend all day talking to you. I'm quite happy.
Absolutely, civility costs nothing, does it?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Right, dude, I've loved this. Really enjoyed this, Jonathan. That's
me too. Thank you.
Almost 3 hours. That's over 2.5 hours we've been chatting.
That's a kilted Bushido length.
It's crazy, isn't it? How the time goes by.
Yeah.
Mate, I've loved it. Absolutely loved it, folks. As I said before, I'll leave all the links for Jonathan Hull Bespoke Motorcycles. They'll all be down below. So make sure you check him out. Give him a like, a follow, and all the rest of it, dude. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Bruce. Lovely to meet you, mate.
And you, man. And I look forward to seeing how the company develops. And I'd love to see some of these bikes in person. Maybe we come up.
You're welcome. Welcome anytime. Come and drop by next time you're on the run.
As soon as I start chopping up that little Chinese 125, I'll be like, Jonathan.
Absolutely.
Everything's gone like this. Bing.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I hope this has given you some inspiration, people, to do your own thing. Get on out there. Look after those that you love. I've totally forgotten my tagline. Get on out there, look after those that you love, but live your life. Woo-ha!
Fantastic.
Balls that up.